fading. We gotta go. I'll get my car.
Pull up mine.
Yours. I gotta get me one of those.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Bat Dan's Interviews. So, as you notice, I have a Superman hat on today. That is because I will be bringing on a Kryptonian to interview. I've had this guy on my channel before. You all know him, ZodWriter. I've had a lot of great discussions with him. But if you don't know, he's also writing a book, Pause Not Stopped, to capture the whole history of the Snyderverse. And I really wanted to bring him on to really get to know about this book, get to know how he came up with it. And I'm really, really excited to talk with him about this. So please join me as I welcome ZodWriter. How are you today, man?
I'm doing good. It's great to be here. Great to be back on your channel, Bat Dan. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem. I always love having you on my channel. And, you know, when you first came up with this book, I wanted to talk to you about this book forever. Really just get to know the whole history and where you plan to go. There's so many great topics.
I'm really appreciative of that you're bringing me on to talk about the book early before the book actually is out for people to read. It's nice to come on and discuss it from a different perspective, from a perspective of it still being a work in progress. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, I'll be honest. At first, my plan was to wait till you were on the channel, or like till the book was out or almost out, to bring you on. But I was like, I can just do another interview with you about it then.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely come back right before the book comes out or when the book is released for sure. That's no issue. But I have no problem, talking about it now because we're going through a lot of craziness right now as DC fans, and quite frankly, this is the reason why the book isn't done yet, because there's a lot of fluid stuff going on right now with DC. We're being strung along in 5 different directions. There's so many different things that are making it hard for me to wrap up the book. But we'll definitely talk about all that. So
yeah, definitely. And in fact, let's bring this up right now. So first off, for anyone who doesn't know, what is Pause Not Stop? To any layman, to any people who exist outside the YouTube Soul Nation community.
Okay, my summation for what Pause Not Stopped actually is it is a truthful account of everything that happened to Zack from the studio and to the fans from release the Snyder Cut, the hashtag, and all of the campaigns to get the movie released, all the way to where we are now currently with SellZSJL to Netflix, sell SnyderVerse to Netflix. And the goal of this book is to be the most historically accurate depiction of events. And I'm basing this off of, my personal experiences in the fandom, along with various other people who've been in the fandom, people that were there. And it's nice for me, being someone who was there since the beginning, to be able to offer such a hands-on perspective, because I was a part of all of these campaigns. So it's something that makes it easy to write about. They always say that, you should write about what you know. And I love to write, hence my name being ZodWriter. So I tend to, this particular project is near and dear to my heart because of that. And all of the people that I've talked to, I've had so many people reach out. I'm so grateful. I've had so many people reach out to me from the fandom, offer their perspectives, give me their feelings on things, talk about, where they were, what the movement means to them. We had a guy that wrote a book not too long ago that was supposed to be about the fandom, but it ended up being kind of like a one-sided kind of a thing, where he sort of highlighted the people that he liked and kind of disenfranchised everybody else. And there was a lot of controversy surrounding that. So for me, my goal is to be completely objective and tell it like it is. Tell the story as it happened, to the best of my ability, the best of my knowledge, the best of what I'm able to get from people, as well as reaching out to people who were there. That includes former studio executives, people who were extras on sets of these movies, people who were involved. The people are going to be very surprised by some of the quotes that I've gotten from various people, important people within the industry. Now, as of the time of this interview, I can candidly say I have not gotten a quote or any kind of anything from Zack Snyder as of yet. And that is something I am eagerly anticipating and waiting on, because Zack is a kind, giving, gentle individual who I think will be in support. I have reached out, and so I am hoping that will happen. And once I have my big quote from Zack, that will be essentially the, what I will consider to be one of the crown jewels of the book. But as it stands right now, I have a lot of material, and I just want it to be as accurate as humanly possible. And this is what's going to differentiate it from for example, that other book that came out. I can't even compare Pause Not Stop to the other book that came out, because I'm taking such a different perspective. I mean, going after executives and talking to people who were actually involved in the filmmaking process, people who were involved with the special effects for Zack Snyder's Justice League, people that were involved who were there at the time of the studio transitioning. I mean, the regime changed like 3 or 4 times during the course of
the
fan movement. So I'm going for historical accuracy, and I think it's going to surprise a lot of people, because I'm really not looking to tell a negative or a positive story. I'm just trying to tell a true story. I don't have a slant. I'm trying to be objective and impartial. So if I'm talking about people within the movement that I don't necessarily agree with, if they did something that was noteworthy or helpful for any of the movements, meaning release the Snyder Cut, restore the Snyderverse, sell ZSJL, sell SnyderVerse, any of those, then they'll be mentioned in the book, and their contributions will be highlighted. It's going to be in there because it's important to what happened historically. It doesn't matter if I personally agree with these people or not. And I will give you an exclusive right now for the intro and let you know exactly who some of these people are. For example, and this is just an example, okay? As many people know, I have my differences with Nana and Cole, who are known affectionately as the Nerd Queens. I have my differences with them, okay? I have my own personal issues with them, okay? However, I cannot deny their impact on Release the Snyder Cut. I cannot deny what they did. I cannot deny the positivity that they at least attempted to drum up when they did their first Snyder oriented event and had Snyder on their channel and did the first Snyder Con and did all of these things. They have to be quoted and looked upon positively for what they did, regardless as if you agree with how they've turned out now, like regardless of where you think things may or may not be. So that's just an example of someone that, yeah, I may not agree with them. I may have a difference in ideology or have some issues with them myself, but they did some good things for the fandom, and it needs to be highlighted and it needs to be shown. But by that same token, there's also some things that they did recently that can be considered negative and can be considered and for people to have rightful gripes about what they did. And that is also in Pause Not Stopped. And I'm not making a judgment either way, even though I was there. I'm not making judgments. But it is in there because it happened, and it is a part of the history of Release the Snyder Cut, Restore the Snyderverse, and the Cell movement. And I've said this many times about this book. If I wanted to just use this book as a way to antagonize or attack the people that I disagree with, this book would have been out a long time ago. There is no, I wouldn't have had to do all the research because I know who I disagree with. I know who hates my guts. I know where I stand. I'm not questioning that. So if I wanted to do that type of sensationalism and write that kind of book where it was all just about my opinion rather than the truth of what happened, this book would already be out, and people would really people would see that, and then they would see, oh yeah, Zod's just taking shots at his social media enemies. Well, no, that's not what Pause Not Stopped is going to be about. And I've said this numerous times. Pause Not Stopped is about the historical truth of what happened within all these movements and the corrupt and greedy studio that is really to blame for everything that happened. And that's why I think it's going to blow people's minds, because I don't think people realize when they come out and they simp for the studio, they come out and act like the studio is, the studio's always right. They defend the studio. They defend their bad decisions. I don't get it. And it's hard for me to look at that and say, well, how can you be defending a greedy studio full of millionaire executives who don't even know you're alive. They don't care about you. They don't care that you're living out of your car eating ramen noodles for dinner every day. They don't care. They're doing all kinds of things. They're filthy rich. They don't even care about these movies. They don't care about these movies. They don't care about the talent involved with these movies. They don't care about the director. All they care about is money. And that's what this is about. It's about the fandom. It's about the movements. It's about the greedy studio. So I guess in a nutshell, you could say that Pause Not Stopped for your intro is about greed. It's about filthy, dirty studio greed. Because there are countless examples of studio executives placing their own ego and their own greed above even what's best for the studio. I've never seen a bigger group of petty executives than the people that have been in charge over various regimes for Warner Brothers. It is the most disgusting, despicable example of corrupt and toxic professionalism I have ever seen, because it's not professional. And it's very petty for a lot of executives, and it's very personal for a lot of executives too. And you will see that when you get a chance to check out Pause Not Stopped. So I don't know if that answers your question as far as an intro, but that's for people that don't know. That's what it's about. It's not about haters. It's not about people who disagree with me in the fandom or people that have created problems within the fandom. It's not about them. It's about the greedy studio executives, as well as the fandom and the hashtags.
Great answer. Great answer. Really, really good way to really capture everything, because obviously, if you've seen some of my previous videos, in fact, some I've done with you, I'm not exactly fond of Warner Brothers Discovery right now and fond of DC Studios. And I'm really excited to see what you found out and what you've really developed in this book. And I kind of want to talk about your history a little bit. So you started off as a radio talk show host, right? Can you talk about that?
I started off, my content, my history as a content creator begins back when I was doing internet radio back in 2012. I started doing internet radio for an internet radio network known as PSN. And I worked under an individual by the name of Angel Jackal Espino, who ran the internet radio, and he ran the network. And I had to learn in order to get on board with that. Growing up, I always wanted to do radio, right? This was my thing. As a kid, I had a little mini radio studio with an equalizer. It was basically like it was a little mini studio, and I had little cassette tapes and you could record. And so it was something I always wanted to do growing up. And, I took some radio and TV writing and broadcasting courses in college and stuff. And and this was something that I really, really wanted to do. So I started off doing the internet radio in 2012. And what ended up happening was that I got reached out to by someone over at NPR. And NPR, for those that don't know, is National Public Radio. And they wanted me to come on and do a radio show, but they wanted me to do a radio show talking about politics. And I'm not really into politics. Politics isn't my thing. I think all politicians are corrupt. I have no alignment whatsoever politically. I think it's all basically they're all part of the same stew, which is just a stew of corruption. And there's really no Republican, Democrat, Independent, no matter what. It's all the same BS to me. So I don't really subscribe to, opinions on the left, opinions on the right, opinions. It's all BS. It's all meant to confuse society the way I see it. So I tend to stay out of it. I don't like to argue or to get involved when it comes to political stuff. And it was a conversation. And I said, no, I was thankful for the offer, but I didn't want to take it because that wasn't what I wanted to do. And then they asked me what I was doing with internet radio. They asked me about my show, what I was doing with PSN. And I explained all about my show, which was basically like an interview show where I would bring on independent musicians, actors, actresses, movie directors. Most notably, I interviewed the director of the Sharknado movies, Anthony C. Ferrante. I've had horror actresses like what's her name? Lisa Wilcox from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I've had various different people that I've interviewed. I was a big cartoon fan when I was a kid, and I used to like to watch, Thundercats and He-Man and Gem and the Holograms, all this stuff from the 1980s and early 90s. And I got to, and as an internet radio talk show host, I got to interview several of my childhood heroes from these cartoons growing up. I got to interview Samantha Newark, who voiced Gem from Gem and the Holograms. I got to interview Larry Kinney, who voiced Lino, Lord of the Thundercats from Thundercats. I got to interview several animation, cartoon character voice actors and actresses. I got to interview a lot of people, and I'm very, very grateful for my time over at PSN doing internet radio. It was a lot of fun, and it helped me, become more and more confident in being able to go and do, especially when it came to transitioning over to YouTube and doing it on video. And the thing about internet radio is it's a lot more complex, at least to me, than YouTube, because you had this broadcast, you had this studio that it was a digital studio you had to work from, and you have to learn how everything works. It would literally take me I'd have to get started a good 2 hours ahead of time before my show would even start. And that wouldn't even guarantee me that I wouldn't have technical issues and problems that would occur throughout the show, because throughout the show, you had to run commercials, you had to run music, you had to run all sorts of different things, just like a regular radio station kind of a thing. And so when I talked to NPR and I explained to them everything that I was doing, they were like, "Oh my God, you're already doing it. You already have a level of success. You already have a following. You already have something you're doing. You know what? You're probably better off doing what you're doing. If this is something that you're passionate about, you're probably better off doing this than coming over to NPR or any other radio station or network for that matter, because radio is like a dinosaur. It's a dying format. So you're on the cutting edge, because now it's about podcast and internet broadcasting and then of course, again, eventually transitioning into YouTube. So I enjoyed my conversations with the people from NPR, and I appreciated the pat on the back they gave me for the content that I was making outside of that. And yes, I could have done professional radio if I really wanted to. I mean, I had the opportunity, but my whole thing was I wasn't about to sell out and become a political talk show host. That just wasn't going to be my thing. So.
And I always like that. Someone who really sticks with what they believe in and doesn't ever want to compromise in their integrity. And I really admire that about you. And it seems like this interview, and we'll get into more of this later, has really kind of, in a way, helped you prepare for Pause Not Stopped, because you already have experience doing these interviews.
Yeah, interviewing has always been my passion, which is why I don't get a lot of views when I do late night Q&A with ZodWriter on my YouTube channel, which is me just continuing to do interviews because I enjoy them. I don't really. I kind of have have a little bit of an issue with it because it's one of those things where I could start trying to bring on people who, I made a lot of connections back in my internet radio days. I could start trying to bring on celebrities or more well-known, actors, actresses, directors, musicians. I could start trying to tailor my late night Q&As to that if I really wanted to. But at the end of the day, it's like, I just want to get better and better. And I'll never be satisfied with where late night Q&A is because but it just keeps me in practice. And interviewing for me is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful passion. And I kind of consider myself, at least when I do late night Q&A, I consider myself to be almost like a talk show host because I try to create that atmosphere with that. And I try to interview people from all different backgrounds and walks of life. And for example, YouTubers that are involved in all sorts of different hobbies and different things and have channels about a gazillion different things. Lately, I've been interviewing a lot of people about in the home arcade community because I'm also very passionate about home arcade stuff. So I've been interviewing a lot of those people on my late night Q&A, but I did have a young, up and coming, inspiring independent filmmaker on late night Q&A last week. And I feel kind of bad because that interview was really good, in my opinion, my humble opinion. Thank you, Mikey. I appreciate that. That was a good interview, and it was very. I came away. I learned a lot from this young man who is just starting out, and he put out an independent film. He submitted it to a film festival, and he did a wonderful job. Mirko Miosic is his name, and he says everybody can call him Mike, and he's a good dude, and he's doing this thing, and he's doing his thing. But again, it was an interview thing, and I was trying to promote him, but people don't, if people don't really know about him. So it wasn't one of those things that, I was going to get a lot of people. Whereas if I were to bring on an actor who's been on television, like, in Star Trek and stuff, an actor like Gary Graham, who I interviewed before over on internet radio, if I were to bring him in, I probably would have had a lot more. Viewers. But that's what it is. It's like I want to be able to promote other people, other content creators, and being able to do that, for example, through late night Q&A is helping me, and it's allowing me to continue to get better and better as an interviewer. And I appreciate being able to do that. And I'm going to continue to do it regardless of the amount of views I get on YouTube doing it, because it's a passion of mine and I enjoy it. So.
I really appreciate this personally, because I was on late night Q&A, and that's actually how I ended up starting my own YouTube channel, was because you brought me on. We were talking about my passion for DC, Zack Snyder, and all that. And then it was actually Super Bro Corey, who dropped by in the chat and asked you, so when is Bat Dan going to do his own show? And that's how I started Bat Dan's Thoughts, which blossomed into doing other shows like Bat Dan's Discussions, Bat Dan's Interviews, where I'm interviewing you right now. So I really do appreciate that, what you did with Late Night Q&A.
And that's what it's all about. I want to promote other people, and I want to continue to be able to do that and help people reach their goals and be, and a famous person once said, if you want to achieve your dreams, become a part of somebody else's. And I believe in that so much, helping other people achieve their dreams, becoming part of other people's dreams. For example, we've got Mikey Sutton in the chat, and we're all big fans of Mikey Sutton and Dreamwalker and all the things that he's doing with that, with the comic and stuff. And it's just gotten to the point where it's like, when you see that and you see the amount of camaraderie and friendship that's been able to be friendships that have been able to be forged just through that alone, that's inspiring. That's a beautiful thing. That's why when I look at everything, and I look at you, and I look at how you and I became really good friends, and I look at, I see the Bat Channel, and I talk all the time about how me and Sil kind of came up together on YouTube, and Socks and I have bonded over a lot of things that I don't think I would know Socks if it wasn't for Mikey Sutton. There's a lot of things that, that are, becoming very, very clear and are blossoming organically as a result of all of these projects. You see Mikey, you see what I'm talking about with Mikey, you see what Mikey likes to do. That's Mikey's MO. He will drop something so subtly, and he will do it beautifully and get everybody talking, and it's wonderful. Mikey has that ability. It's a unique thing that only he can do, and I find that so inspiring and such a wonderful thing. And like I said, Dan, I couldn't be happier with the way things have been transpiring with everybody, how we all seem to be connected, and we're all one big, happy, connected, connected, like, I don't know, man. It's like a collective of minds that, are trying to come together, built off of creativity, friendship, and respect for each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing I love about Sil Nation, the Mikeyverse, and also Trey's new affiliation he has, the Battalion, where it's just a way that we all get to know each other, all get to grow and build with each other, and just bond with people that I would not know if it wasn't for YouTube. Wasn't for, as much issues as there is with internet drama right now, the reality is I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met Sil, Mikey Sutton, Trey, Super World Corey, Skywalker, Savage, all these great people that I would not know if it wasn't for YouTube. So I really vibe with everything you just said right there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And again, you can't make this stuff up. I look at everybody and I say, each individual in our group, in our circle, brings something special and unique to the table. Everybody has their style. Everybody has what they're good at. And you see like, for example, Mikey knows how to utilize everybody's skills in the right way too, because he knows he can go to different people for different things, and they're and use people to their best, to their best ability of the things that they are going to bring and make everything better and lift everybody up. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing to see. I look at Mikey Sutton right now. He's the hardest working man on YouTube. I've never seen anything like it. The guy he's on like almost nearly 5 nights a week with Skywalker the Jedi.
Oh, yeah.
It's just insane. I'm like, I don't know how you do it, man. You're like a cyborg. I don't know how you do it 5 nights a week, and then he still streams with Sil and all these other people, and it's just sort of it's amazing. It's an amazing thing to see, and it's inspiring too, considering all the things and projects that Mikey has going on and all the stuff that he's working on. Because I know myself personally, it's like I don't know how people find the time to do certain things. Writing this book is hard. It's a very different thing. Writing a book is hard, especially when it requires a lot of research and a lot of time and effort and energy, and to find the time to invest in the but you make the time. because you make the time, because what you want to do is you want to develop things in a positive way, as long as it's important to you. Because if something is important to you, you will make the time for it. And I can't not mention, the current live stream that I do, every other Saturday with APAS. I Don't Get It. I love that show that her and I are doing. I feel like we are building up something really great. People seem to love it. And I honestly couldn't be happier with that project. So I'm putting a lot of time and effort and energy into that too, because that's something that I think has potential to be super, super huge on YouTube.
Well, yeah, definitely. And I love every episode of I Don't Get It. I always enjoy, I sometimes have to catch them on replay, or like last show, for example, I'm watching them in shifts right now, but just
that's what my father does. He watches all of the shows, and he watches them in increments. When he gets time, he'll watch a little bit here, a little bit there, that kind of thing. And it's sort of, and it's cool because, you get bits and pieces, because they tend to go long, especially the shows that me and APAS do. They tend to be very lengthy streams, but it's great because there's always a ton of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, and there's always more and more content, and I can't wait. Honestly, I can't even wait for your next episode. So much great content. And before we move on, I actually have one question for you, and I don't know if this is the right section to ask this, but oh well. How did you get the name ZodWriter?
What had happened for me was, growing up, I was a big Superman comic book reader growing up. I collected Superman comics, Superman action figures, Superman-related memorabilia. I had Superman posters. I was just a big, massive, religiously supportive Superman fan. He's always been my favorite comic book character, but I also loved the Christopher Reeve movies growing up as a kid. And one of the characters that really, really stood out to me was General Zod. I always thought there was a lot going on with that character. I always felt like he was underutilized in the Donner movies. Like, there should be more with Zod. Zod is a complete, he's a complex character, and they need to give him more. He's not just a villain. And like later on in Smallville, you got to see Zod, kind of fleshed out as more of an intellectual tactician kind of a character, with strategy and stuff. And then, of course, the way Zack Snyder handled it with Man of Steel and Michael Shannon was just mind-blowing. But I honestly was always a big fan of Zod and all things Superman. So when it came time for me to create a name for myself online, a persona that I was going to go by, I'm not one of these people that likes to have 90 million different handles, 90 million burner accounts online and all that. I want to be known as one name and one name only. So I knew whatever name I picked, that was going to be what I was going to stick with. And I wasn't going to go back. And so I wanted to put something with Zod. And I decided to go with ZodWriter because I write a lot. I've been writing since I was a kid. I used to write poetry, short stories, plays, scripts, you name it, I would write. Write. That's what I did. When I was in high school and college, I wrote for school papers, periodicals, wrote articles, was big into journalism. And for me, ZodWriter was just a perfect name on online. And what's great about it is, it's original. It's something that nobody uses. It's something that no one that it was never anything. And everybody knows, ZodWriter, it's associated uniquely with me. And that's the other thing. I wanted something that was going to be unique. And ZodWriter is definitely unique.
Yeah, it's very unique name. When I think ZodWriter, I immediately think of you. Although I have to say, sometimes when I talk about Zod the character, sometimes by mistake I'll say ZodWriter now.
Yeah. That happens to a lot of people too, and I get the. So it's essentially my pen name, and since we're talking about Pause Not Stopped, I want to make it clear that I'm using ZodWriter on the byline of the book, so it will come out Pause Not Stopped. It won't be Joseph or anything like. It'll be ZodWriter. ZodWriter is the pen name that I'm using for writing the book, and as an author. And anything that I do in the future, it will be under, ZodWriter, except when I write articles for stuff that's, internet websites and various things. I know I wrote a couple of things for Geekosity, and I used my name, but ZodWriter is my pen name that I'm going by for all of the stuff all the projects that I'm working on. So.
Right. And I mean, honestly, when people like you use names like ZodWriter, it just feels weird when you have a real name. It's like, I think, or like Skywalker and Super Bro Corey. I think of you guys like that's your actual names. I don't actually.
That's the whole point, though. The whole point is to get it to stick with you in a way that like a nickname that you got from friends when you were a kid, and it just sticks with you your whole life. And like for your digital life, you should have a name that is going to be remembered and it's going to stick with you, and it should be like second nature and should almost be looked at like your real name, because it's essentially what you're known by. It's what you're known for. And yeah, I mean, and I have no problem with that. I think it's great. I think it's great. And I think it helps out a lot. It helps people in a lot of different ways to have a catchy online handle that people are going to remember.
Yeah, especially for the SnyderVerse, it fits very well with what we're talking about. And actually going on, so I want to kind of go over now your history as a Zack Snyder fan, a SnyderVerse fan. When did you start becoming a fan of Zack Snyder?
My first encounter with Zack Snyder as a creative, I'd seen him. He had done some documentary. I'm not really a big sports fan, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But I did see him. He did a Michael Jordan documentary a long time ago, and I saw his film Dawn of the Dead, and I prefer the director's cut, but I do like both. I do like the theatrical cut. There are merits to that, and the director's cut. I prefer the director's cut, but both are good. And ever since 300, I've seen every Zack Snyder movie in the theater. I even saw Sucker Punch in the theater. I went out on a date and saw Sucker Punch.
Are you also big on Release the Snyder Punch?
Yes, I believe I actually have a passage in the book about the Snyder Punch, where I actually talk about Sucker Punch a lot. I talk about some of the psychological implications of Sucker Punch and the various things. There's a lot there. I haven't released any clips or anything with the stuff that I talk about when I talk about Sucker Punch, but I'm letting you know again as an exclusive for your channel, Bat Dan, that Sucker Punch is referenced in the book for sure.
Oh, great. And for those of you who don't know, when I say Snyder Punch, it means the director's cuts of Sucker Punch.
Yeah. So I saw, and I remember I was horribly, horribly sick when Watchmen came out in the theaters. It came out around my birthday. I believe it was released on March the 9th of that year when it came out in 2009. And I was horribly sick. I had the flu. I was horribly sick leading up to the day. And my girlfriend at the time, I was like, look, we gotta go see Watchmen, because I've always loved the graphic novel. I've always been a big fan of Alan Moore's work. So when, and it's Zack Snyder, and I'm a big Zack Snyder fan. I was a big Zack Snyder fan at that point in time. After 300 too, it's like, man, 300, Dawn of the Dead. Guardians of Ga'Hoole is actually really good too. The animated movie about the owls. I didn't know. See, Zack Snyder, you really want to know Zack Snyder's range as a filmmaker, watch Guardians of Ga'Hoole. I'm really surprised the amount of Snyder fans that have not seen that movie. But getting back to what I was saying about Watchmen, I was horribly sick the day that it came out, and I still managed to, opening night, to go to the theater and watch and see the theatrical cut. And it was quite an experience. I got better a couple days after that, but I had horribly had the flu like that whole week leading up to Watchmen. Yeah.
But hey, it shows how dedicated you are to Zack Snyder as a Zack Snyder fan. And I guess, what was your experience first seeing Man of Steel?
I have to be honest. When I first heard about Man of Steel, I was a little bit nervous. Okay, now don't get me wrong. I was always a fan of Zack Snyder and his work. I mean, it's Zack Snyder. He's wonderful. But at first, I was really, really cautious, because I was like, man, I don't know. I saw a couple of images of Henry Cavill as Superman, and yeah, he looked the part. But I questioned whether or not, Zack was going to be able to pull it off. I really was I was worried about it. I was like, I don't know. I had these reservations, and then I think it was because we were coming off of Superman Returns, and and it kind of I remember going to see Superman Returns with my mother, and I remember my mother falling asleep in the middle of it, and I remember nodding off a couple of times during Superman Returns, and I don't know. Because I'm such a big Superman fan, I'm just naturally skeptical as a lifelong Superman fan of every new creator that comes along and takes on the project. So I didn't know what to expect with Man of Steel. In fact, there was a friend of mine that came to me and was like, Zod, have faith. Snyder's going to do it. Snyder's going to make it comic book accurate. And he showed me pictures of, some behind the scenes stuff. He had some kind of behind the scenes magazine or something that he was showing me that had, pictures of Krypton and all the various things that Zack was doing. And he was showing me, images from the comics. I think it was John Byrne's run on of Superman in DC Comics, and he was showing me panels that were lifted directly from the comics that Zack was using in Man of Steel. This was all behind the scenes stuff. This was all before the movie came out, and I was like, wow. I was like, yeah, maybe he'll do it. Maybe he'll do it. I ended up seeing Man of Steel in the theaters 4 times.
Oh, wow.
I went and saw it with my father when it opened, and he loved it, and I loved it. And we were both we both kind of bonded. It was like a Father's Day thing. We both bonded watching Man of Steel, and from then on, my dad and I have gone to see any time a DC movie would come out after Man of Steel, we would go to see it. We'd already had seen all that. We'd gone and saw all the Nolan movies together and all that. We'd seen those, but with Man of Steel, it had cemented it. Like every time a new DC movie came out, we would go see it. And that means a lot to me. I love the relationship that I have with my dad. And I feel like Man of Steel, I have such fond and wonderful memories of Man of Steel and seeing it in the theaters with my dad. And then, of course, I went and seen it, with my girlfriend. I went and seen it with a friend of mine, a couple different friends of mine. And yeah, I loved Man of Steel. And I felt great because I felt vindicated. Like, man, I had these reservations and I was feeling a little bit iffy on it, and I was wrong. I didn't have to have any reservations, and from then on, never had any doubts about anything Snyder did after that.
Yeah, again, I like that. I like that you kind of started off really kind of something that a lot of Snyder fans, to be honest, would probably want to have your head for dare admitting that you weren't always a fan, or that you had any doubts of Zack Snyder, but it just shows how honest you actually are.
It was apprehension because of the fact that I'm such a big Superman fan. So I'm like that with anybody that comes out and makes a Superman, any kind of Superman movie. Hell, there was a group of people that I know that were making a Superman movie at the time. It's a fan film called Superman Requiem. And when Superman Requiem came out before Man of Steel, I was an associate producer on board of Superman Requiem. Was a little bit involved in the project. And even that, I was very apprehensive about what they were doing. I was very apprehensive about a lot of it because I'm a huge Superman fan. But Superman Requiem was a movie that was supposed to take place, in the Donnerverse, and it was more of so this was supposed to be Christopher Reeve's Superman. But I was apprehensive about Superman Requiem as well. And so I'm just naturally apprehensive about any Superman projects that come out, especially when a director gives you reason to panic, like the way James Gunn is doing to us now. Okay, he's got us all in panic mode because of all of these stupid decisions that we keep seeing day after day after day after day. And with Man of Steel, if ever there was a director that, knows how to wash away any kind of apprehension whatsoever, it's Zack Snyder. My God.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Zack Snyder, with both of us, he earned our trust. He earned our trust to follow his vision, and took a lot of people to win him over, like BVS. I guess let's move on to BVS now, like Batman v Superman. What was your thoughts when you saw that movie?
I was in love. When I saw BVS, I was in love. I was enamored from the first when they had the Comic-Con panel and they had Harry Lennox reading from The Dark Knight Returns, reading the monologue, Batman's monologue from Dark Knight Returns, and they first showed the logo with the Superman S and the Frank Miller Batman insignia for Batfleck. I had no, in contrast to how I felt before Man of Steel came out, I had no reservations. I had nothing but excitement and hype leading me into BVS. Very, very different feeling. And yeah, BVS got a lot of flack, but that's because we knew, and this was the thing about BVS that had true Snyder fans and DC fans alike at ease about BVS. They were hyping up the Ultimate Edition of BVS while the theatrical cut was playing. So while critics were lambasting BVS for being clunky and disjointed and being nonsensical in some areas. They were hyping it up. Warner Brothers was advertising the Ultimate Edition and getting, like, basically reassuring fans, yeah, the theatrical cut is clunky and disjointed, but guess what? We got the Ultimate Edition. We got Snyder's Ultimate Edition coming out. And what's funny, Dan, is I have a Voodoo account for movies, for digital movies. I had pre-ordered the special edition, the Voodoo version of Batman v Superman. I had it pre-ordered and paid for in full before I saw BVS in theaters. And I ended up seeing BVS in theaters 7 times.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see BVS Ultimate Edition in theaters, but I never got that opportunity because there were no showings of it near me. So but I believe to this day that Warner Brothers made the mistake not putting the Ultimate Edition in theaters.
Oh yeah.
Skipping out on that stupid theatrical version altogether. I think if Christopher Nolan was still there, it would have been the case. I don't think Christopher Nolan would have let them butcher the film like that. Yeah, I don't think it would have been that way. But it is. It's one of those things that I'm really happy with the way BVS turned out. I enjoyed it. So I'm not, so I don't get all the hate. I never understood all the hate. I was a fan from day one. And like I said, for me, once Zack Snyder earned my respect with the way he handled Superman, I had no problem moving forward. Zack Snyder could release anything, and I was going to be there no matter what. So,
and it's funny though, because even though BVS was butchered in the theaters, it still made a lot of money. It still probably would have reached that billion mark if it wasn't pulled early.
Yep.
So, but you know what movie was really butchered? Justice League, or as we like to call it, Justice League. What was your thoughts when you first saw Justice League?
I was confused, to be honest. I didn't know what to make of it. Because like many people, when you see a movie like that, and it's such a letdown, 1,000,001 thoughts are going through your head because you're trying to justify what you just watched. You're trying to understand if it's just you or if it's the collective belief about the movie. And I had gone with my father and my nephew to see Justice League, the theatrical version. And I just remember walking out and being so underwhelmed. I think the very next day I was on Twitter, and actually I think it was actually that night, the night I'd seen it, and I was, it had already started the release the Snyder Cut. The hashtags were already flowing. So you
joined on to release the Snyder Cut pretty much right after you saw Justice League.
Yeah, after I saw Justice League, I was really, really uncomfortable. Like I said, people, I was trying to justify it to myself. Basically, telling myself that it wasn't bad, even though it is. I think this is what people are I think this is what brought people together. That collective confusion about what we witnessed, what we watched, how far it had strayed from the kinds of movies we know Zack Snyder makes. Because the theatrical version was so unlike anything that Zack Snyder would release. And now we know why.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that really motivated you to get on the Release the Snyder Cut campaign. So you were pretty much active from the beginning then.
Yeah. Yes, I was.
And then when we finally got that announcement on when Henry Cavill's like, I reckon you should show it, and then Zack Snyder, he moves the camera and it says Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max 2021. What was your reaction when that happened?
Well, I, like everyone else, was breathing a sigh of relief and was excited. I was out of work at the time because this was during the pandemic. And I remember I was watching Zack Snyder. I was watching it on my tablet. I don't even think I have the tablet I was watching it on anymore. But it was quite the experience.
I bet. And then when you finally saw Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max, what was that like for you?
It was another sigh of relief and a wonderful experience. Um, I'm very thankful to have it, in spite of all the things we've gone through, and in spite of all the things we continue to go through collectively as a fandom. But you know, at least we have it. At least we can watch it. You know.
Yep. I own it on physical media, so even if James Gunn wants to find some way to wipe it off digitally off the face of the earth, I still got it on DVD or Blu-ray or 4K technically. So James Gunn won't be winning completely. And I guess so during this time as a SnyderVerse fan, that you really started coming out on YouTube. When did you first start your transition from internet radio to YouTube?
I was doing internet radio up until around the time the Snyder Cut was announced. I was a little bit nervous about transitioning from internet radio uh, to YouTube. I had been working with the four nerds. We had been streaming together. It was me, Dawson, Sill, and Zeverfet. And we had been streaming together on YouTube as a group, and I was still doing PSN radio. And then I finally decided to no longer do PSN radio and focus on YouTube, because they kind of convinced me, like it was kind of in a lot of ways, my experiences with the four nerds is one of the reasons why I do content on YouTube now, because we were together as a group, and I wanted to explore more and see what it would be like to be a YouTuber and to transition from internet radio. Plus, I found YouTube to be a lot easier to do through StreamYard, and there wasn't as many complicated things to do. It wasn't as difficult as it was for internet radio setting up to do a show. I mean, YouTube, you can honestly just, decide to go live anytime you want. There's really no issues with that. But with internet radio, it's a whole big ordeal. Internet radio, I had 1 day a week and one time slot. I had a time slot I was allotted, and I would have to do my show during that time. If I was unavailable to do my show at that time, I would have to schedule a rerun so that something would play in that time slot. it's a lot different than a lot of additional stress that I was happy to get rid of, honestly.
Because there is definitely a lot more flexibility with YouTube, with just being able to go on whenever you feel like it. So I get it. So I mean, somewhat. I haven't done internet radio myself, but from what you've said, I understand. And I guess so. With what you're comfortable talking about, because I know there is some kind of bad history, but like, what kind of made you branch off from like the four nerds into really your own content creator?
Let's see here. How that went was basically when I was again transitioning away from doing internet radio anyway. So my plan was to build my own YouTube channel anyway, regardless of what happened with the four nerds. If I was, so I guess I could say that even though I'm not streaming with the four nerds anymore, it wasn't because I'm not streaming with the four nerds that I did my own thing. I was going to do my own, have my own YouTube channel regardless of if I still worked with the four nerds or not. It just became more of an issue of me now being able to do more of my own content since I'm not streaming with them. That's basically what it was, because my whole idea was just going to be to bring the ZodWriter show from internet radio to YouTube. That's literally all I was going to do. There wasn't going to be any difference. I was essentially going to just take the radio show and do it live on YouTube. And that's what I've tried to do essentially with Late Night Q&A. Is Late Night Q&A is a variation of what the ZodWriter show was when I was on internet radio, because it was almost always an interview show of some sort. And I had a co-host that I did my internet radio show with, and her and I, we had a good run. It was great, but she had a lot of things that she had going on in her life that she had to handle and take care of. And so she ended up leaving the show. And I had suggested the idea of maybe bringing her over with me for Late Night Q&A, but she didn't. She was unable to do it because of the personal things that she had going on in her life at the time. So I wasn't able to bring her with me. I did have her on Late Night Q&A one night, though. I was able to bring her on as a guest and actually kind of catch up with her on Late Night Q&A, which is amazing. I've done almost 90 episodes of Late Night Q&A now. So it's kind of amazing to see it working the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't always catch every episode, but I really do love that show you do, really getting to know different people on YouTube, different types of people. And it's a really great show, and it feels like Late Night Q&A really was that natural transition for you from internet radio to YouTube. And then you do all these other great shows too, yeah, there was the ZodWriter show, but you also do have a new show I want to kind of talk about a little bit. I Don't Get It. The show you do with APAS, how did that start?
I love that you're bringing up I Don't Get It, because as I mentioned earlier in the intro when I talked a little bit about it, I have never been happier streaming on YouTube than I am when her and I do that show together. There's something very, very special and very, very unique about I Don't Get It. APAS is a natural talent. She has a beautiful passion for DC, like we all do, and wants to the same thing that we all want. And it's wonderful. Like the compatibility that her and I have as a team doing these shows is wonderful. And this is coming from someone who had a co-host on internet radio, and had a co-host for years and years and years. And with I Don't Get It, I see APAS as a true partner. I see APAS as someone I can work with, and we can develop this show and be as creative as possible. This is why I tell people, expect big things from I Don't Get It, because the creativity is just flowing with that show. We are going to take it to the next level. It is going to be huge. It's going to be the biggest thing creatively I've done outside of Pause Not Stopped. And I'm being honest, I don't think I'm really motivated and I'm excited on so many levels because of I Don't Get It, that as somebody that does, that's doing content and doing all these different things, this is what I was looking for. This is the kind of thing that I always hoped I would have when I came to YouTube in the first place. Someone who gets me and understands me, and someone who I get and understand. And we have this friendship where we're able to play off of each other very well. And we know we're getting to know each other so well now that it's going to continue to run very, very smoothly. And it's just going to get better and better and better over time. And so I don't know, man, I'm so excited and so happy about it. And how it started, to just to answer that question, APAS and I were talking, we're chatting on social media, and we noticed how we both seem to be very opinionated about these things, and we don't compromise in our opinions, and we're both very honest about how we feel about this stuff. And so finally, I just texted her. I just sent her a message and was like, we really need to get together. We need to work something out. We need to collaborate on some stuff, because you feel the same way I do about this stuff. I feel the same way you do. We always agree, and we're unrelenting on how we feel. I said we got to do this. It's a natural thing. And so we did a couple episodes of just my YouTube, of just under ZodWriter show. And then after streaming a few times under the ZodWriter show banner, we decided we would rebrand it to I Don't Get It. And I was elated because it was APAS who came up with that, who said, yeah, well, it'll be called I Don't Get It, because a couple times we had both said I don't get it together at the same time. And we realized that was, what it needed to be. We realized that was the show. That was the genesis of it. And we're like, okay, yeah, we're going to do that. And so we decided we're going to rebrand it. And not only did we decide that was going to be, that I Don't Get It was going to be our collaborative show where we're equally partnering with each other. I don't consider APAS a co-host. I consider APAS a partner. We're partners together in this adventure of I Don't Get It. So we will do it like that. And it's going to be, and that's how it's going to continue to grow. And it's a beautiful thing. And it's unique outside of the things that you see other content creators doing in our space. It's a unique show, and it has a different flavor to it. So that's what I was going for. That's what I always wanted. And this is why I feel the way I do right now. It's almost like it lit a fire in me to say, now I can really be creative, because now I have the person I want to work with, and we can bounce off of each other creatively and come up with awesome ideas and do this show. And we decided to do it every other week instead of trying to do it every week, to make it so that we have plenty of content to talk about and still leave people wanting more at the end. Still feel like, wow, we talked about all that. We went for 3 hours, and yet we still had things that we needed to get to that we could have talked about. But now we've already got topics for our next show, and we're not even, and we're a week out from it yet. We've still got a while to go. We're not doing the next one, I think, until like the 26th, Saturday the 26th, but we've got we've already got tons of stuff for it already. I've already went in and created new drops and new little things that we're doing with it. We've got a whole bunch of, I mean, there's so much happening on the I Don't Get It front. So between I Don't Get It and Pause Not Stopped, I'm very busy because I'm balancing between the two, but I Don't Get It is the thing I think I'm going to put the most time and effort into as far as YouTube, because I think it has value and I think it will be bigger than the stuff I was doing before. Thank you, Sin Havoc. Yeah, I just, so I don't know. I mean, I guess I should ask you then. I mean, how do you see it as somebody who's watching it, from the outside? Do you see where I'm coming from, or do you think? I mean, what do you think, like, overall with it? Because I don't know. I'm really committed to it, and I think it's something that her and I can do together for as long as we want to. There's no end as long as we're both on the same page and want to do the show together. I don't, we'll never have a problem. I could see us doing it for years to come. It's fantastic.
I think you two honestly have really great chemistry on YouTube. You really just seem to really vibe and gel with each other. And I really love that when I watch your show, when you give your opinions, when you really seem like you're on the same wavelength. And that's why I think the show works really well together.
Yeah. I cannot disagree with anything you've said. I think and I'm just thankful to have somebody to collaborate with like that, who understands me well enough like that, and I understand her well enough like that, for us to be able to do a show like that. Because I'm going to be honest with you, as a, again, coming from internet radio, it is not easy to find a partner to do a regular stream with on a regular basis like that. You can try, but people will often fail. And I like to say, the best shows are usually when it's just two people that get each other really well and can bounce off of each other, and, ideas and creativity. And, like, I'll give you an example, a Sill Nation example. Sill and Mikey. That's, to me, that's perfection. To me, that's what it should be. That's what you should have. You should have a duo like that they know each other so well, they can bounce off of each other, they know what to expect from each other, and then you don't have any problems with your shows, because you know where you're going to go with your shows, you know how you're going to map it all out, and it's going to be wonderful. And so that was my model. When I look at, our group in YouTube, I look at Sill and Mikey, and now it's like people will look at APAS and I and say, look at APAS and ZodWriter. They're a good team. They're a good duo. They get each other. They get it. There it is. That's the team. That's what I want to see. That's how I want to see everybody develop. I want everybody to find that one person that they can stream with regularly and feel good about it in a way that you're, and they can be confident every time they go live. This is going to be great, because this is two people who get each other. This is two people who want to convey these ideas and their feelings to the audience, and they're going to do it well, and the audience is going to be there for them every week. And how I know that this situation, this whole concept of I Don't Get It is going to work well for me and APAS is I look at the views that me and APAS get on our shows that we do. We get great views. It's a great show for what we do. Because like when me and APAS were talking and we're looking at the numbers of how people are watching it, and we're saying to each other, wait a minute, these are Scoop Center views. These are Rogues Gallery type views. I'm telling her, we've done it. We're the next template. You have Sil and Mikey, and now you have APAS and ZodWriter. It works. Like so I'm looking at it from that perspective, and I'm saying, my God, that's what I was striving for. That's what I wanted. I wanted something that could work and I could be happy about, and I could be excited about, and I could talk about to everybody, and not have any, reservations about where it was going or who I was doing it with. Because again, I've tried stuff before. I had a show that I tried not too long ago, last year with Ashley, the widow. It was,
I remember that.
It was a show. It was, and it's so funny. I can't even remember the name of the show.
You were
right
reviewing
now.
superhero movies. I remember that.
Yeah, it was like superhero movies, but it was a different it was from the perspective of comic book fans viewing the movies from a comic book lens. And at the time, I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was something that we could do, but there was always all kinds of things. There were scheduling conflicts. There were issues, with people I was friends with, she wasn't friends with, people she was friends with, I wasn't friends with. It was that kind of thing. And it had nothing to do with how her and I felt about each other personally, but it was all about all of these external other problems and other issues that got in the way. And the thing I love about the show that, me and APAS are doing is that it's all equal. It's all equal creativity. We feel the way we feel, and we know each other well enough now to be able to convey that to the audience and not have any reservations about it. We don't have to take anything back. We're telling it to you how we feel about it. And if you don't like it, those are your feelings. Fine. But I sympathize with everybody on YouTube that's trying to create something, and that, gets a team of people together, whether it's 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, and tries to build a successful live stream or a show content. It's not easy to create that. And that's why it's always going to be important to find the right people. And one of the things that I want to say to you, Bat Dan, is I noticed that you and Socks have teamed up.
Oh, yeah.
And I looked at that and I said to myself, do you see what I'm talking about? Do you see what this is? You see the kind of stuff that grows from example, from when people see, hey, this can work. I got, me and Socks, we can do this, you and, I couldn't be happier to see this kind of stuff popping up. It's the most beautiful thing, because it's changed things. And like I said, for me, I look at Sil and Mikey as the blueprint, the way that they did it, and the way that they were able to build up a brand of must-see YouTube. And now I see what you and Socks are trying to do too. And it's also very inspiring, because it shows that all of these things are related. It shows that I look at, we got, I don't get it. We got Socks and Bat Dan. We got Sil and Mikey, and we got it all under this banner of like-minded individuals that all want the same thing and all want to support each other and see each other be successful. And that's, that's the best thing about it to me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I love in like the show I do with Socks. I really love that show because I wanted to kind of branch out my interest into Marvel, and I knew there was no way I could do a Marvel show by myself. So I really needed to bring on someone who was more of a Marvel guy, and that's how I got Socks on. Because he was someone that I've already streamed with before and who was really versed into Marvel.
Yeah. And I understood that part of it. I think, but what I'm saying is I just want to see you and Socks grow as a duo. I like the idea of two content creators that I like, two people that I know that I like, being able to come together and do something regularly that they're passionate about. And that to me that's the best thing that could come out of it. And that's why I keep gushing and keep saying, man, I don't know what I did. I don't know how we managed to make this happen. You can't make this stuff up. Some things that happen are just meant to happen. You can't explain it. You can't, when you get it and you do it the right way, it just makes sense. And people will see that, and people will come to that, and people will support that. When people see people, gelling together and positivity beaming, and them just speaking the truth about how they feel about stuff, you can't fake that. Real recognizes real, and that's the truth. I've never, like I said, I've never been at a point on YouTube where I've felt happier than where I am right now. I think that I finally cracked it. I think I finally know what needs to happen, and that's why I'm willing to put all of my efforts into it. And I'm motivated more than ever before because I can see the future. I can see it blowing up and being something big. And I could see the beginning of something. I could see the seeds of something in the first stream that you and Socks had together. Once Socks gets his internet situation straightened out, where you guys are able to talk like we are now, and you don't have all those cutouts and issues like that, you won't have any problems. Your show will evolve organically, and you'll be able to develop it and continue to keep it working.
I mean, that's part of going to live stream though. Sometimes is you have to deal with those internet issues, and you have to kind of improvise some of the time. But still, I think once we get going, I think it will be a really great show. And by the way, I looked it up. It was weekly comic book movies you did with Ashley.
Oh yeah, weekly comic book movies. Yeah. It's that was a good show. It was a good show. It was a good show in concept.
Not your fault that your internet misbehaves, Socks. Don't worry about it. That just happens sometimes. I've had internet issues myself.
No, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. The internet is an issue, but once the internet issue gets ironed out, it's not. Once it's something that can no longer stop you, it'll work out great for you guys. I mean, and I want to see more of that. I want to see more duos. I actually was sitting there thinking, you know what? Let me write down, who I'd like to see team up. And I guess since I'm talking to you and I'm being honest, I guess I can kind of, run this a little bit. I like the idea of you and Socks teaming up together. I think that's a good one. Syl and Mikey again are the blueprint. That's good. You got me and A-Pass. This might sound controversial, and it might seem a little bit weird, but I kind of would like to see Skywalker team up with somebody else other than streaming. The streams he does with Mikey and all are cool. They do that night shift, and that's cool. But I'd kind of like to see Skywalker stream with a different person and have something uniquely different, where he can bounce off that person and that person can bounce off of him in ways like, for example, like what you and Socks do, what Syl and Mikey do, what me and A-Pass are doing. I'd like to see something different there. Whether it's, and I've thought about it. I'm like putting people together in my head. I'm like, I don't know. Could it work if it was just Skywalker and Necron? Could it work if it was just Skywalker and Leon, or Skywalker and Austin, or Skywalker and somebody completely new? Skywalker and Mama Bear. Socks, you read my mind.
I'll have to pull that up.
The male female dynamic is awesome. I actually thought about that too. I said, and Socks, I was going back and forth in my mind between Skywalker and Mama Bear, or Skywalker and Retro Nerd Girl. And I don't know, man. I don't know if maybe it's because I'm thinking of this. I'm thinking of everybody like in, pairings and doing shows pairings, not taking anything away from things that people are already doing, but I'm just thinking in terms of like different things, that could work. So I don't know, man. There was that. And then I was thinking, well, maybe Necron and somebody different too. I don't know.
Necron does this thing with the Retro Nerd Girl, Pandora's Box. Him and Mikey go on with Retro Nerd Girl.
Yeah. And that's a little bit unique too. That's a little bit unique.
But the guy-girl ones are kind of hard because I think, unfortunately, with the superhero genre right now, there are guy fans do currently outnumber girl fans right now.
Oh, of course. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like thinking of all these different things. And like I said, I would love to see, like I said, Socks kind of read my mind. I'd love to see Skywalker and Mama Bear, because I feel like they get each other. I feel like they understand each other on a level that would make for great content. I don't know. What do I know? I don't know. I just know that I just know what's working for me. I just know how I feel. And I don't know. And that's why I say I'm not trying to, downplay anything that anybody's currently doing. I'm just saying that if that would be something that I'd like to see. I'd like to see a Skywalker Mads Mama Bear team up stream, regular team up stream. I'd like to see a lot of different people do different things together. I have like this dream sheet of what I'd like to see. But yeah, there's
That's I love where I do Batman's discussions, because it's the show where I do get to team up with all these different people. I like doing a show with Socks where it is a regular, consistent guest, but I also love doing the shows where I have a different guest every time, because you get these team ups that you don't really think of before.
Yeah. Yep.
So really, really great points that you made right there. And so I guess kind of now that we've got your background a little bit more, so I wanted to go on to the story about the book. So first thing, how did you come up with the name Pause Not Stopped?
Pause Not Stopped had been used a lot in the past to describe what Zack Snyder is going through with his vision. I'd heard it used a few times by some YouTubers in the past as like a way to describe the situation. And it just kind of stuck with me and stayed in my head as something that I thought was appropriate, because for how long it took us to get Zack Snyder's Justice League, it was paused. We eventually got Zack Snyder's Justice League, but it just took a little while. And it could have took a lot longer than it took, but we were lucky to get it when we did. And all the things we've been fighting for since, if it were to continue, it would once again be a pause, not stop situation. And nothing convinced me that I was right for Pause Not Stop to be the title, if not for the poster of the Superman statue that Zack Snyder used for promotion for the Full Circle event. That Superman statue is paused, not stopped, personified. The Superman statue is literally the Superman put back, the statue being put back together.
Oh yeah, that's a really great analogy. Really great point right there. Because yeah, you have in BVS, the statue gets destroyed, and then it's rebuilt. Kind of essentially what's going on with Zack Snyder's arc for Superman.
Yeah.
So I guess what made you? So I know you kind of touched up a little bit of this in your intro, but in more detail, what made you decide that I want to write a book capturing all this?
Well, one of the main reasons why I decided to write the book was because of how disappointed I was with Sean O'Connell's book. Sean O'Connell's book, I've been writing my whole life, and I was going to write a book no matter what. In fact, I've been working on a fictional story, fictional novel for the better part of a decade. But I don't have I'm taking my time with that, and it's taken forever. But my disappointment with the release, the Snyder Cut book, was the reason why I decided, no, the fandom deserves the truth. The fandom deserves a real story. The fandom deserves the real, a real behind the scenes story that's not just a guy propping up his friends and ignoring everybody else. I need to be able to tell the story objectively and tell the story from the point of view of, yeah, I was there. Yeah, I was involved. I wasn't involved in every conversation, but that's the point of being able to talk to so many people and to reach out to people who were there. I don't think that this book is, I think this book is going to surprise a lot of people, is what I'm saying. Both in a good and a bad way, because I think people are not ready for this. People are not expecting me to go as deep as I'm going. There's a lot of criticisms that I get from the audio clips that I've released online from the book. People straight up call me a liar, straight up say that I'm making things up, say that, I'm just pulling all this stuff out of my butt. That's why this book is taking years to write, because I'm making stuff up as I go along. All the stuff that a lot of the stuff that I've released already is stuff that most of it can be independently verified. A lot of it can. You can go back and you can do searches for, interviews with different executives, different people, some quotes. There's some quotes that I took directly from articles that I've read on the subject, the exhaustive research that I've done. And again, I've got people that I'm talking to that worked for the studio, that no longer work for the studio, people that were on the sets of these movies, people that are, that are involved in the industry. People are going to be surprised. And I think a lot of it is going to make people uncomfortable, I guess would be the word, because the studio is so backhanded and so almost evil in the tactics that they use to get what they want, or to get what they think they want, which is whatever's going to make them the most money. But what's going to surprise people more than anything else is the fact that it isn't even about money to a lot of these executives, because these executives are getting their money either way. So it isn't even about money with them. It's about ego and pettiness. And ego and pettiness play a big, big role in the true story of Release the Snyder Cut and Restore the Snyderverse. You are going to see some things in the book that I think you're going to really, really be surprised about. And like I said, I think it's going to most likely end up being a 2-part book. I don't really, if I decide to make it a one, if it just ends up being, say it ends up being one book, there's going to be a lot of material that's going to be left out, because it needs to be specific, and it needs to cover all the bases. It needs to cover everything about the fandoms, as well as all the executive stuff behind the scenes. So there's going to be little nuances and things I'll have to leave out if it doesn't if I don't want to make it 2 books. So I'm leaning towards making it 2 books, which is going to make it an even longer process.
Whatever you decide, I think will work really well. I think especially 2 books, again, doesn't limit the content. So I guess, are you publishing this book? How is this book getting distributed?
Okay, there's 3 plans for distribution. I wanna explain. The first is there's going to be a digital release of the book, which is going to be completely free for anybody who wants to read it digitally. It'll be released through Amazon. Where you can download it and read it on your phone or whatever device you want. There's going to be an audiobook version of it as well. And there will be, as of now, there are going to be plans for a limited print run for the book as well. But the print run, there probably won't be as many, like a lot of copies circulated, because it is going to be available for free. And the print run, the proceeds for the print run are going to be donated to AFSP. So
nice.
I'm not, that's another thing. People keep attacking me, but I'm not profiting off of this book either. So if it's just me making a bunch of stuff up, why am I bothering? Why do it at all? I'm not profiting from it.
Yeah, and that's what I like is, it's kind of like Zack Snyder and Zack Snyder's Justice League, who did the Snyder Cut for free. You just want your story told. You just want the story told the way you want it, not worrying about money. You're worried about the art, and the truth, which is what I really admire about this book. And I guess who's doing the print run? Or did you team up with any company or?
Well, as of right now, I have plans for none other than Mikey Sutton to publish the book.
Oh, really?
Which is something that I'm looking forward to. Mikey and I have talked about it, and Mikey is definitely he said he's definitely interested in publishing the book, and so we'll see where that goes. But my plans for the book, as far as once it's completed and ready, again, there'll be digital versions available for free, as well as an audiobook version that I've been releasing little snippets from on social media for several months now. So, and you're going to get more and more clips leading up to the release of the book. There's going to be a ton of clips, and then you guys will have your choice. You can buy a physical copy if you want to. You can have your digital version for free. You can get your audiobook version, whatever you want, but it's going to be widely available for anybody really interested in it.
Who's doing the voice for the audio?
The voice for the audio book is actually it's an AI generated voice. It's not anybody's voice. It's an AI generated voice. The British narrator that I have reading those clips is the audio voice for the audio book. So if you like that voice, then you'll enjoy. You'll be able to listen to the book with no problems because that's the voice you're going to hear. It's not that this way. It's not gonna cost me anything for the audiobook other than the service that I'm using to be able to generate the voice technology, which costs me about $20 a month. But that's a small price to pay because I do a lot of things with that technology. So now, for the book alone, that'll be worth it. And you guys will have a nice audiobook that you'll be able to listen to and enjoy. So, yeah.
That AI, though, that is really scary sometimes.
Yes, it is. I agree with you. I mean, what do you think, like, of some of the clips that I've released? In fact, I mean, if you want to, let's see. I do have a couple of clips here that I think you can go ahead and play if you want to. Let me pull them up. Let's pull up some of the clips. You guys, you may have heard some of these clips because I've released them. I've released a lot of them online, but I guess we can start with the newest clip that has been released, which is about Toby Emmerich.
Reckoning had finally come for Toby Emmerich. The order for him to call Zack Snyder personally and work out a deal to release the Snyder Cut had come directly from AT and T CEO John Stankey. Toby was instructed that the deal was to be made no matter what. Objections from himself and other Warner executives had fallen on deaf ears. Stankey was determined to give AT&T a much-needed win. The fans were literally clamoring for it, and Warner Media's startup streaming service HBO Max desperately needed brand new content to compete with the likes of Netflix and Disney+. As much as Toby detested the idea of reaching out to Snyder, the decision was above his pay grade. Toby had no other option, so he did his duty as a loyal company man and dialed the appropriate digits to reach Zack Snyder. No secretaries, no agents, nor other representatives. Just Toby and Zack one-to-one. There would be no compromises this time. The grimy Snyder cultists had won. The phone rang, and Toby bitterly waited for someone to answer.
Toby.
And I just want to kind of pull up Sin Havoc's comment real quick. I just found it funny.
Yeah. And I thought about it. I could actually do that. I could get, have as a joke. Maybe I'll release a couple of clips with Zachary Levi reading the book. That'd be pretty funny.
But man, that voice, though, I swear, I mean, I've listened to some of these clips before, and certain times, I'm just saying, it does sound like a horror movie. You're saying play certain clips with the lights off, and you're the only one in the house listening to that. And I swear, the boogeyman's in your closet is what it sounds like. It's just.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Here's another clip that had some people up in arms.
Oh, the thumbnail of the video.
Not Stopped is a book equally split between Paused, Not Stopped is a book equally split between passionate fan movements and studio corruption. Many of the people who dislike me for whatever reason drastically mischaracterize the purpose behind this book. They narcissistically believe it's going to be negatively targeting them, while I positively praise my friends and like-minded acquaintances. I have said numerous times when discussing Paused, Not Stopped that this book is not about calling out individuals whom have differing opinions from my own. I urge all readers to view my book with an open mind and look beyond themselves. The goal is to provide the most historically accurate depiction of events as humanly possible. At no point are people whom I disagree with vilified or undeservingly called out. All comments in this book made by people who I may or may not agree with can be found publicly in one form or another. It will be left up to the reader to decide how they feel when presented with all the information. To put it even simpler for people who may still not understand, spoiler alert, This book is not about you.
There's something there's something though in that clip that kind of said that I really want to kind of highlight is that, you mentioned that you have people you disagree with. And that's one thing I really admire about your book is that you are talking to the people that, like Nana and Cole, that you don't get along with particularly.
Right. I'm not speak. Now, here's the thing. To full disclosure, I don't have any quotes from Nana and Cole. Like, I didn't reach out to Nana and Cole and say, hey, would you like to make a comment for Pause Not Stopped? I've taken some of the stuff that they've said and quoted them from stuff that's publicly available, from things that they've said, content that they've put out in the public. So there's anything from them. And that's why I say anything from them or anything from anybody that I personally disagree with, even if I don't reach out to them specifically, it can be found publicly. So it's not like I'm going to have anything on there that they didn't say that I just made up because I disagree with them. No, anything that they actually said is going to be verifiable by people reading the book. You'll be able to read the book, read that quote from Nana and Cole that they say in the book, and then you'll be able to look it up yourself and be like, oh yeah, they said that when they were, they said that during the first SnyderCon, or they said that on one of their live streams, or they said that on Twitter or whatever. But the point is, nothing that I'm pulling for the book from anybody that I disagree with is coming out of thin air. It's actually coming from something that was actually said. So hopefully people understand that. And so if anybody gets mad, I love it. Nobody, you can't get mad at me if I quoted something that you said publicly, that's publicly out there. If you said it, then you have to own it. Just like, I'll give an example, and I'm going to paraphrase. When Stephen Colbert said, the Snyder fandom is about to convince 40 people convince Warner Brothers that 40 people want the Snyder Cut. Stephen Colbert has a laundry list of negative tweets leveled at the Snyder Cut movement. And yet Stephen Colbert is up on a panel with Zack Snyder. If that's not injustice, I don't know what is. And here's the thing. I'm not leveling any negativity towards Stephen Colbert. When I quote Stephen Colbert in the book, he's quoted because of what he said, not because I don't like him, not because I disagree with him or his wife. It's because he actually made these statements, and I am documenting a historical event. So that's how I'm handling people that I disagree with. Yeah, they're quoted in the book, but they are quoted as saying things that they actually said, either through tweet or on a live stream or publicly on social media somewhere else. If they said it and it's out there publicly for all to see, it can be used.
Exactly, and that's the thing. When everything you say on the internet is public, if you say it, as I agree, you own it. It's not, if I said something on here and people quote me, it's like, hey, I say what I mean on here. So that's exactly as Sin says. Once you put tweets out, once you put comments or tweets in public, it's out there. Yep, exactly. I mean, you can try to delete the tweet and maybe you'll get lucky, but once it's on the internet, if someone really wants to see it, there's a way. Screenshots exist, so you can try to delete the tweet. Someone will have it online.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah, I'm not, and like I said, I'm not. You'll never see me put out. You won't find a part in the book where I say, "Oh, Stephen Colbert did this to me, and his wife said this about me and attacked me and did this to me and did all this. That's not the kind of stuff you're gonna see. If the only time anybody like that is in Pause Not Stopped is if it's related to what's being talked about. So if it's it's in the chapter where I'm talking about the Release the Snyder Cut movement. Stephen Colbert's quote about the 40 people is important contextually to the movement because it was something he said making fun of the phone campaign that we did. And I was involved in the phone campaign when we called Warner Brothers and asked them to release the Snyder Cut. I was involved in that campaign personally. So I took personal offense to what Stephen Colbert said. However, it's not going to be framed that way in the book. In the book, it's framed as this is what he had to say about it. And, readers can make up their own mind and decide if he's a hypocrite or not, like Sin Havoc says. Because it's going to be pointed out in the book that these are the things that he said and he's quoted, and it's all contextual. And then you see him up on stage with Zack Snyder at the Full Circle event, and you get quotes from when he was on stage with Zack Snyder at the Full Circle event. That's how it's going to be done. I'm not going to be sitting there talking about my personal feelings about him one way or the other. So people aren't going to be able to come at me and say, oh, you're attacking this person and that person. Well, no, I'm not. I'm not making a judgment one way or the other. I'm putting out the information of what was said. It's up to you to decide whether or not, he was out of line or not. I'm not making that judgment. And as the writer of the book, I got to remain objective. And believe me, that's hard. It's hard to remain objective when you're dealing with a bunch of people that have done the fandom wrong and are scumbags and have ulterior motives, and you have to figure out a way to be objective and include them because they're part of the history. That's what sucks about writing this book. That's what the tough part about writing this book is. And that leads me to another clip I want to share with you over another individual that I, quoted in the book who was mad. I'm going to try to find the quote right here if I can. I don't know. I think this quote was taken. This was the one that was taken out of the book because it was incorrect. But I think this is as snarky as I ever got, and I had to take this out of the book.
News lost all credibility when he decided to pass. Our movie news lost all credibility when he decided to pass judgment on the SellZSJL and SnyderVerse movement. He got upset after being rightly criticized for the way he downplayed Zack Snyder's signing of Skywalker the Jedi's poster. Zack Snyder wrote the words, "SnyderVerse sell it." Skywalker had initially asked Zack to sign the poster using the campaign hashtags, but Snyder chose to write something unique that fully signified his support for Cell in a monumental way. Our Movie News actually had the gall to refer to the Cell movement as toxic and proclaim he would never use the hashtags again. Unfortunately, Our Movie News isn't the only reputable vlogger turned circus clown as a result of Skywalker's full circle bombshell. The rabbit hole goes deep and the turncoats hide in plain sight, similarly to that of certain groups within the previous fandom campaigns Release the Snyder Cut and Restore the Snyderverse.
Again, that is horror movie. That's what it just sounds like. But do you have the correct clip too?
Yeah, but what I was going to say, for full disclosure, that was as judgmental as I would have been able to get for the book, right? That would have been about as far as I could go if I was going to say, and that ended up not being used. because our movie news pointed out that I had incorrectly quoted what he had said. And I really didn't quote him. Technically, he was incorrect because I didn't quote him. I just paraphrased. I didn't really quote him. So technically, he was incorrect. However, out of respect for him, out of respect for everyone, and out of transparency, and in the interest of being fair and not being judgmental and not picking sides, I decided to go ahead and make the change. And now this is the adjusted passage that is currently in the book. And now you tell me if I'm judging or taking a position here.
News unfortunately decided to personally move away from Our movie news unfortunately decided to personally move away from the SellZSJL and SellSnyderVerse to Netflix hashtags. He believes, as of the time of this writing, that they have become quite toxic recently. Our movie news pointed out that he was not talking about everybody in the movement when he used the word toxic and was referring only to Cell leaders Leon of the New Geeks and Skywalker the Jedi. Zack Snyder's signing of Skywalker the Jedi's poster is a bombshell moment for the Cell movement. Zack Snyder wrote the words, "SnyderVerse Sell It." Skywalker had initially asked Zack to sign the poster using the campaign hashtags, but Snyder chose to write something unique that fully signified his support for Cell in a monumental way. This event has had many people debating since it occurred, and that will likely continue for the foreseeable future. This passage was changed due to a previous error on my part that incorrectly paraphrased what Our Movie News had said in his YouTube video. This book aims to be a true account of events, and so any time I can correct an error, it only makes the writing more accurate.
I think it's a very important passage because it really shows what you want to do with this book, is that you want accurate information and you're willing. Like, a lot of people get stuff wrong, but you actually willingly admitted it publicly, and that's something that I really give you a lot of credit for.
I didn't want to, I don't want to be negative or unfair, even if I don't agree with the person. And that's the point. Like, he was right. I incorrectly paraphrased what he said. And that's fine. I did. I incorrectly, because I was coming from a place of emotion at the time that I first watched his video. That doesn't make it right. And I was willing to go back and make the change. And once I made the change, I sent it to him. And he was okay with it because he understands what I'm going for now. Even he realizes it. He doesn't like me. He doesn't agree with me. But even he has to respect the fact. It has to at least give me credit for fixing the mistake, owning up to the mistake publicly, and making sure that it's accurate now. So now you can't. Now, what are you going to say? Now you're going to say I'm inaccurate. You can't say I'm inaccurate because if I make a mistake and I'm aware of the mistake that I made, and I'm willing to own up to it and change it, well, doesn't that make it show in my favor that I am trying to be accurate here? I mean, I don't know. I'm I'm lost as to what it is. And it's like I've been saying before, that like people who don't agree with you are going to find reasons to come after you, whether you're telling the truth or not. You could tell somebody the sky is blue, and if they don't like you, they're going to argue with you about that, because it's not about the truth. It's about the fact that it's coming from you and they don't like you. And if they don't like you, then it means everything that you're saying is suspect, no matter how many pieces of evidence you have to back up what you're saying. So
That's the thing. Just no matter, I mean, as Zack Snyder fans, just we all know that you're always going to have haters. But the thing I like about you is that you don't care. You just want to tell the story the way you like, the way you feel is accurate. And I really admire you for it. And so I kind of want to go on to another part where like the book almost kind of didn't happen, right? When James Gunn, that fateful day when Henry Cavill made the announcement that he is in fact no longer returning as Superman. And Gunn is like, oh, I'm going to cast a younger guy as Superman. what was your thought about the book that day?
Well, I was drinking a lot. I thought that my book was over. I thought that James Gunn had basically sunk my book because there was no way that I had no motivation. I had no reason to write the book. I'm writing the book because I believe in the fandom and I believe that there's still a chance, at least a chance, that we could get more of what we want. Mainly thanks to Skywalker and Leon and the Cell campaign that, is in our hearts now and is something that we believe is the main way forward. However, with James Gunn, I felt like it was over. I had scrapped. I was ready to scrap it all because I didn't know where to go from there. Because I could have still did the book, but I would have had to end the book in such a negative way that it would have became a negative book. And if it's going to be a negative book, there's a difference between being a factual book, being a negative book, and being a positive book. And I want it to be a factual book with a ray of hope and positivity attached to it. But if all I can do is write negative stuff, and if all it's going to be is negativity, then there's no point in writing the book because you don't want that. You don't want it to be you don't want it to end on a downer. And like I said, this isn't about people that I agree with or disagree with. This is about the bigger picture, which is the studio. The studio is the problem. The executives are the problem. It's not the fans. Positively or negatively, fans have every right to express themselves about how they feel. Whether they love something or hate something, it's their right to talk about it. Because as fans, we are paying customers. We buy the tickets to these movies. We buy the merchandise. We do all this. We have every right to speak about how we feel and what this means to us. So when I look at, the concept of the book as a whole, I couldn't really, because there's so much underhanded sleaziness that happens at the studio, from a studio perspective. That's negativity enough. The story about what's going on with that studio is negative and dirty enough. I don't need to end the book in a negative way with the bad guys being victorious. That's not the way I wanted to do it. So I would rather burn the book than have to write the book and put myself through that. I was feeling like Ben Affleck. I wanted to jump out of a window because I was like, what the hell? I just put all my energy and time into this book, and this is what's going on. This is what I have to look forward to. This is the fruits of my labor. James Gunn coming in and defecating all over everything. Forget this. I'm out. And that's how I felt. I literally had a crisis of faith, and it nearly ended the entire book. And then I got rejuvenated by the light of hope that was the Cell campaign. And because I believe in the Cell campaign, and I believe in the concept that Sky and Leon were going for with that campaign, that woke me up and rejuvenated me a little bit. And whatever happens now, Pause Not Stopped is coming out either way. I'm not going to have another crisis of faith and decide not to write. It's going to be written. The story has to be told. The book has to come out. I put too much time and effort into it to let it go. But James Gunn is not going to have the last word in Pause Not Stopped, regardless. And this is the lesson of that little crisis of faith that I had. I cannot be ruled by one, cannot be overruled by the crazy, wacky actions of one man.
And it's a really inspiring story, though, is that, it's hard. That was hard. That was a hard day for all of us when Henry Cavill announced he was Superman. I was the same way. I was upset. I was what we call sober drunk posting on Facebook, when I post like I'm drunk even though I'm completely sober. I get it. It was hard. And I guess I wonder, so was there, if Sky had not come up with the Cell campaign, was there any chance that the book would have come out?
Well, I was feeling a certain way, and I was thinking about changing the name of the book. I was thinking about gearing it more negative and gearing it towards James Gunn. It would have changed if it would have came out. It would have been a different book than the one we're getting now. What we're getting now is the book I actually want. What we were going to get then, if I was going to write it, I was going to be writing it out of spite and anger. It would have been like me with both my middle fingers up at the world if I ended up putting the book out under those circumstances. But I went through a really, really rough period. I got horribly drunk. I felt like so much of my life that I'd put into it had just been gone, flushed down the toilet. I was in a very, very dark place at that point. And I was mad at myself for allowing the actions of James Gunn to affect me so profoundly. And that's why I decided that no matter what the book is going to happen, no matter what the book will come out, the only difference now is, if I would have ended up doing it then, it would have ended up being a very, very negative book. I don't think I would have even bothered to, it would have just added to the overall message of studio corruption that the book has enough examples of. I mean, these studio heads, these studio executives are some of the most despicable scumbags on earth. I'm telling you right now. Some of the stuff that they do, it's just so gross. Like, as a human being, I don't understand it. But it would have just been an all-out, like, dirty book. Like, it would have came out and it would have exposed a bunch of people. It would have been like, and then of course, the ending of it would have been all targeted towards James Gunn, and it would have just been completely, because as it stands now, James Gunn has a chapter in the book. So, but James Gunn's not the focus of the book. James Gunn's not, he's a factor because he's important to the story, but he's not, as big of a factor as he would have been. Like, he would have been essentially been like the villain of the story if I would have wrote the book in the way that I was thinking when I was going through my crisis of faith.
Well, is that at the end of the day, we're all only human, but still, regardless of any circumstances, you rose above it, and I think this will end up being a stronger book, an even stronger book as a result. So, at the end of the day, James Gunn, all you did was help pause, not stopped. So,
well, yeah, and I did manage to talk to one of James Gunn's friends for the book. This is a friend of James Gunn, and here's the clip that I have for that, and we can talk a little bit about James Gunn. Here you go.
Oh, let me just put this banner down because that whole image needs to be seen.
Sims is a lifelong friend of James. Tui Sims is a lifelong friend of James Gunn. His real name has been disguised for this book at his request. Tui has known James Gunn since he was 7 years old. He is now 37. Sims has appeared as an extra in all 3 of Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy movies and hopes to continue the tradition when filming begins for Superman Legacy. I asked Tui to characterize his friendship with Gunn and speak a little bit about some of the best personal qualities James Gunn brings to their friendship. Tui paused before answering. Jim is a stand-up guy. He would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. He has always been kind to me and never acted like a dick. He gets a bit of a bad name from people who don't understand him or his dark sense of humor. Jim was friends with my older brother, and we literally connected better. My brother says it's because Jim and I both have the same kind of sense of humor, dirty and what some might consider inappropriate jokes. Tui concluded, Jim is misunderstood, dude, and some people will never get where he is coming from because they don't know him. He makes good movies, he is a funny guy, and an amazing friend. I asked Tui if he thought James Gunn could do anything to change some fan perceptions of him. Tui replied bluntly, hell no, Jim likes controversy. He has no problem interacting with people who hate him. It gives him joy, like the time he told an idiot on Twitter he was sorry to hear that the idiot's mum had kicked him out of the house. That's classic Jim. I thanked Tui for his time and considered the entire conversation to be a bit wacky.
I interviewed Tui, and that situation was wild. That guy, man.
It's like you show that other side of James Gunn, that no matter how much we don't like James Gunn, you at least were willing to get a friend of his to tell their side of the story, to show that you're covering all sides of the story. And I think that's really important. And what really
I still had Gunn simps coming after me when I put out that quote, when I put out that clip. They still came at me. And started making fun of me and talking crap because, again, I don't know. I mean, he said some very nice things about James Gunn. It wasn't like I, edited it or I just, oh my God, what do you want? What do you want from me?
Exactly. But I mean, again, you're just telling the story the way it's supposed to be told, and you're telling the different sides of the story. And
I want to clarify here because we got lies, and more lies in the chat right now. And I want to clarify. So if you can bring it up, I want to actually clarify what is being said here. You're saying, who would ever believe this crap? There's a reason Zod is releasing this book for free. It's so he doesn't get into legal trouble for making up all those quotes and misinformation. In the first place, and this is number one, it was always the plan for me to release the book for free. Okay? That's number one. Number two, I got news for you. There are going to be physical copies released of the book. Number three, I can verify everybody that is in the book. I can verify. This friend of James Gunn, that the quote that I just posted gave to Dan right now, the quote from James Gunn's friend, that's an actual friend of James Gunn. Okay, you don't have to believe me, but he said a lot of nice things about James Gunn in that clip. And if I was so biased about James Gunn, why would I go to all the trouble of trying to find somebody who's a friend of James Gunn's to speak in the book? That makes no sense. And if I'm actually just doing misinformation and wasting my time, I wouldn't even be doing it. Believe me, I've got better things to do. I'm a busy person. I have a lot going on in my life. You think I care? You think it really is? If it was really about lies, who is it for? If you're making it up, you see, this is the thing that people like you don't think about. You don't take the time to think about the time that it goes into to do these things. What reason would I have to make this up? Why would I go through all this trouble? Why would I bother? What kind of a miserable person would I have to be? I mean, isn't there enough going on in the world without that? There has to be a reason and a motivation. And I would have no motivation to make something like this up. I've got real information. I've spoken to real people. This book is legit 100%. and it was always intended to be released digitally for free. So I hope that clarifies some of your stuff. And honestly, Lies, Lies, and More Lies, it's free, so you'll be able to read it too. And then you can make all the jokes you want. You can call me all sorts of lies, all sorts of names. It doesn't matter, because the book will be there for all who want to read it. And you're talking about legal trouble. Let me tell you something. You don't think that when I started writing this book, you don't think that I got a lawyer? You don't think that I did? Come on, man. Who do you think you're dealing with here? You're not dealing with some amateur. How do you think Sean O'Connell was able to write his book about Release the Snyder Cut? You really think that, people don't just make things up and pull quotes out of thin air? You got to get these quotes from somewhere. I don't get it, man. I don't get it, because I'm a liar. Okay. Okay. Well, I guess I'm a liar then. That's fine. I'm a liar. I'm a liar with nothing better to do with my time than make a bunch of stuff up. That's cool. That works. I'm a liar. I appreciate that. I'm glad you feel that way. I really, because it says more about you than it does about me, because you have to create fake screen names and come into people's live streams and attack them for no reason. That's not something that I'm doing. So, yeah.
I always love a good troll roast, Zod. That was probably a really good troll roast. And at the end of the day, you told your truth. And actually, I actually have this little troll, this beta, to thank for this, because he actually transitioned us really well to our next topic. I guess when it kind of, you mentioned interviews with Gunn, and then as you're going after the troll, that you're talking to all these different people. I guess there's some different interviews I want to ask you about, because I know you've mentioned this one publicly. I forget her name. It's Priya Dogra of EMEA, like Europe, Middle Eastern.
Yeah, she worked for Warner Brothers. She was the one that called Zack Snyder's Justice League a global phenomenon. And they fired her because, they're purging the studio of anybody that had any, fondness, or, if you will, or loyalty to Zack Snyder. That's why I say it's a wonder that Pam Abdy and Mike DeLuca are still at WBD. And I think that the only reason Pam Abdy and Mike DeLuca are there is because they're the best people for that job. And that Zaslav knows if he loses them, all sanity is gone at that studio. Because we see how it's one bad decision after the next. And since you're mentioning interviews and we're talking about James Gunn, I want to play this clip, because this clip is another example of the kind of thing that we're dealing with here. Here we go.
27-year-old lifelong comic book movie fan. 27-year-old lifelong comic book movie fan Brian Dobbs walked out of his local Marcus Theatre with his girlfriend Kim and her parents Reggie and Patricia. They had just finished watching James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. This is the first time they have been to the movies since COVID-19 began. Brian was excited to see what James Gunn would do in his DC directorial debut. Having been a huge fan of Gunn's successful Guardians of the Galaxy movies, there was no way in Brian's mind that James Gunn wouldn't deliver the same high-quality level of entertainment for DC Marvel currently enjoyed. Brian and his movie-going party felt this experience would be worth having theatrically. They all loved Zack Snyder's Justice League, which they viewed together as a family on HBO Max because it was not an option to watch it in a cinema. Brian revealed to me that his girlfriend Kim and her parents were confused by The Suicide Squad. This was the first DC movie they were watching after Zack Snyder's Justice League, and they all wanted to know why none of the characters showcased in that movie carried over. Zack Snyder set up so many great plot points for the future of DC, and James Gunn did not honor any of it, Brian frustratingly told me. Kim and her parents are general audience members, and even they are aware of the epic way Zack was telling the story. James Gunn made a mockery of DC, and this experience was a complete waste of time and money. Brian was not surprised when James Gunn's The Suicide Squad tanked at the box office.
Yeah, and COVID does not get that excuse because other movies in 2021 did well too. So, like Jungle Cruise.
But we're talking about interviews. The reason I wanted to play that is because Brian is a James Gunn fan, who I interviewed for this book. I reached out to everybody, fans of James Gunn and fans of Snyder alike, fans of all across the fandom spectrum. I mean, and the point I'm trying to make is he was disappointed, and he's a Gunn fan.
Yeah, and that's because again, it just was not that great of a movie.
But you're a liar, Zod. Okay.
And you're willing to cover the other sides of it, and that's what I really, again, I say this a lot because it's really important. That's what I love about your book. You're capturing the different sides, and I guess one thing I'm kind of curious about. Did you actually, like, I know you said that you've like gotten quotes from like watching people on YouTube and like not on call, but like, did you actually get anyone you don't get along with so well to talk to you specifically about the book to get a quote?
I have a few things out there that there will likely be. There's some stuff being worked out that might actually happen. Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that, and I'm glad you're willing to do that. I'm glad you're willing to take that, because I know it's not the most comfortable thing in the world to reach out to some of these people, but you're doing what's best for the book.
Well, I'm going to give you an example. The Tui, the lifelong friend of James Gunn that didn't want his identity revealed. If you guys knew who this person was, you'd be shocked. I was surprised I was even able to speak to him, but I was. So I don't care. It's in the book. And he had nothing but nice things to say about James Gunn. And he appreciates James Gunn's style of humor. I don't. So, but it doesn't matter because it's not about what I appreciate. It's about what the facts are.
Exactly. It's not your feelings. It's the facts of the book to tell the most honest, truthful story that you can tell.
And that's what I mean. Like I could sit, like I told you, I could sit here till I'm blue in the face. I arguing with lies, and more lies about the sky being blue. And he's going to argue with me because he doesn't like me. So because he doesn't like me, it doesn't matter if I'm telling the truth or not. It's about the perception that he has of me. Because he doesn't like me, everything that I say and do has to be sus, regardless of how much evidence there is to prove that I'm saying the truth. Because it's not about the truth. It's not about facts to any of these people. It never was. These people are only interested in aligning themselves with people they agree with. And if they don't like you or don't agree with you for any reason, you're automatically the enemy, regardless of how factual your information may or may not be, because people need to understand it's not about facts, it's about perception. But Pause Not Stopped is about facts, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to these people. So it is what it is.
I'm curious about something. There's someone that I know that you're not a big fan of right now, and I'm curious if you have tried to get a quote from him, or you have gotten a quote from him. David Ayer, the guy who we're fighting for his cut, and lately went after one of our great friends here. In fact, also fresh. Do you think you're going to try to get a quote from him?
I probably could, because I know enough people. I'm close enough to enough people who are in David Ayer's circles to where I probably could if I wanted to. There's a chapter in the book right now that is incomplete and is kind of open-ended because I'm sort of waiting for quotes to come back from different important people of note, and I'm leaving it available for when I do get additional quotes that I'm not expecting. And one person I am expecting to get a quote from the book is Zack Snyder himself. I'm expecting to get something from him soon. Once I have my Zack Snyder quotes for Pause Not Stopped, I'll be a lot happier once I have those. And I'm very seriously considering reaching out to David Ayer, although the thing with David Ayer is that this book is not about the Ayer cut, but the Ayer cut is mentioned. The movement for release the Ayer cut is included in there, but it's not. It's just I kind of gloss over it and give the basics of it and talk about how Ayer is essentially getting screwed over, similarly to how Snyder got screwed over. But because I don't focus on it too much, I don't know that I necessarily need it for the book per se. But if I can find a place for it and I can actually get a quote from David Ayer, I will. But as of right now, no, I don't have a quote from David Ayer.
Okay, makes sense. But I'm curious then. So speaking of people who are related, did you get any quote from any Justice League cast members?
I reached out to some people. I reached out to Gal Gadot's people. I reached out to Ben Affleck's people. I've also reached out to. I was successful in hearing back from Henry Cavill's people. So there's going to be actually. Let me go ahead and share this with you because I think you'll be interested in this one. Hold on a minute.
Well, if you get a quote from Cavill's people, you'll definitely get Zack Snyder because I think Cavill's probably a lot harder to reach than Snyder.
Oh yeah, I have no doubt I'm gonna get something from Zack. Yeah, that's not even a.
Here he is, the man himself, the main character of the SnyderVerse.
Henry Cavill anxiously sat down in James Gunn's newly furnished DC Studios office. He was about to have a very important meeting with Gunn regarding his long-term future in the coveted role of Superman. Cavill had heard various nuggets of information which suggested James Gunn was about to fully reboot DC from the ground up. When Gunn entered the office, Henry firmly shook his hand and eagerly anticipated what hopefully would lead to an uncontested, prosperous legacy for his portrayal of the last son of Krypton. You know what some say about hope? Henry Cavill was about to find out that in this particular case, it is a lot more like his car keys than the celebrated S Zack Snyder embroidered onto his chest back in 2013.
I have previously unknown information in regards to the meeting that took place between Henry Cavill and James Gunn. And that's as a result of my reaching out to the right people. So I very likely will have something from Cavill for the book. Very likely.
I mean Snyder, since you already said Cavill.
Cavill.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so actually, I'm going to bring up this person. He has a question that I want to. I think you addressed this already, but just maybe give a brief summary.
The thing is that I'm not so much interested in the stories of people that are against the movement per se, because the story is about the movements themselves. And yeah, there's negativity and there's haters and there's antis and all of that, and it's mentioned, but I don't really feel the need to actually get quotes from these people, because there's enough negative quotes. All you got to do is go on Twitter and you can get quotes. And I've got a lot of negative tweets. I got a lot of negative tweets that are quoted in the book from noteworthy people too, that were all about ragging on the movements, talking crap about the movements, and they're sitting up there on a panel with Zack Snyder live for people to see. And it's so frustrating, but it happened, and it's real, and it's truthful, so it's in the book. But as far as, just basic people that are attacking, say, the Cell campaign, or attacking, people who are still fighting for Snyder, not really. I don't. It's mentioned enough in the book, and to hammer home the point that there's a lot of opposition on all sides. But we've got people within the fandom that have done a lot of questionable things, and it's going to be left up to the audience to decide when they read the book what they think about that. It's not me making a judgment. It's in there, but it's not me making a judgment one way or the other.
Leave it up to the reader at the end of the day. And this actually kind of brings up a point I want to bring up. So, your hope for the book overall. I have one. Oh, hold on. I gotta play this before we transition. Let me play this.
Negatively perplexing aspect of the Snyder The most negatively perplexing aspect of the Snyder fandom to me is the amount of pushback a lot of positive social media campaigns receive from certain people who claim to support Zack Snyder. If these individuals love the filmmaker's DC projects, why go out of the way to disrespect initiatives that are being carried out by other passionate fans in efforts to help secure more of Zack's DC work? Nothing says they have to participate with hashtags or other types of social media activities, but to actively mock and downplay these efforts so despicably should be viewed as bad or worse than the trolls, naysayers, and haters. In many ways, it is this head-scratching behavior that keeps the fandom divided from within and consequently stifles meaningful progress. In researching this aspect of the fandom, a few people revealed to me that the main reason for the pushback is all about personal credit and clout for roles within certain campaigns, as well as jealousy or shunning due to not having originated certain ideas. In short, these types of people are only interested in seeing efforts succeed if they were involved in coming up with them. Otherwise, downplaying, mocking, and belittling is standard practice. If a campaign or hashtag didn't start from a certain section of the fandom, it is regarded as meaningless, stupid, and deserves to fail. There is plenty of evidence to support this point of view, especially when investigating some early responses to hashtags Release the Snyder Cut, Restore the Snyderverse, and most currently SellZSJLToNetflix and SnyderVerse The topic of clout and credit will be explored in greater detail during the chapter Us United.
So there you go. I hope that answers that question with regards to haters and naysayers, and yeah.
And again, at the end of the day, just those stories will be told, and with the readers will draw their own conclusion from it, and I think that's the best way to give the book. And I think, in my opinion, that's a really nice, objective way to give the book, because I'm sure you have a lot of hope for this book. And I guess kind of one thing, hold on, is it pulling up properly? Okay, there we are. So I guess one thing I'm kind of curious about is, we'll start with a smaller question with this, is what's the main thing you hope to differentiate yourself with this book from Sean O'Connell's book?
Well, the main hope that I have for the book is that people come away with a new understanding of just how despicable the studio is. That's number one. The main message is that it's not The main message of Pause Not Stopped is that we should not be fighting against each other because we are not the problem. We're just fans. We don't have any control over anything. The real problem, the real villain of the story is corporate greed. Studios with endless amounts of money that care only about themselves, their egos, and their desire to make more money. It's not about people, individuals within the fandom, couple individuals attacking somebody here or attacking somebody there. It's about the bigger picture. And so there's that. And then, of course, I'm going for a historically accurate approach. So right there, it's already different from what Sean O'Connell is doing because it's accurate. It's historically accurate, and I'm getting stuff from all sides. There are people that I've talked to from the book, for the book, who don't like me, who have been quoted, who are in the book. There are some people that have made some statements that, and it did agree to be in the book, even though they don't like me. So there are a few people, but I've tried to make it as balanced as possible and as honest as possible. I want you guys to be able to look at the book and be able to independently verify at least 50% of it and know that it's the truth. You don't have to take my word for it. And that's the thing, that's the point a point I was trying to make with lies, lies, and more lies. You're saying that you're calling me a liar because you don't like me and you don't agree with me. You're not calling me a liar because you have evidence that I'm lying and making this up. You're calling me a liar because you don't like me. And so you're perceiving me as a liar because of that and only that. This has nothing to do with truth. It has only to do with perception.
And that's how it is with a lot of people, honestly. And just again, really well said. And you kind of actually covered my next question too with your main hope for the book too, is that at the end of the day, you just want the truth out there. And that's all you can really hope for, I guess, at this point, is that people will take the book and they'll see this stuff for themselves.
Yeah. You'll make the decision yourself based on what you think. I mean, if you think I'm lying, okay. But a lot of people put out a book. They get a lot of crap for it when it first comes out. And then everybody forgets about it and moves on because our news cycle is so quick.
Yep, I know that.
That's what I mean. I mean, Pause Not Stopped is taking all this work. It'll get released, and then within a week of its release, it'll just, it'll be just another story.
And that's how it is with a lot of movies, though. A lot of movies, a lot of stuff, they spend all this time making it, and unfortunately, it will be forgotten about. But at the end of the day, your book will always be there. It will always be there for people. And if you can just reach out to one person, I know that sounds that cliche. I know that's very cliche, but if you can just reach out to one person, it's worth it.
Yeah. And my goal isn't, like I said, my goal isn't to offend anybody. My goal isn't to attack people who disagree with me. My goal is to tell an accurate representation of history, to give you something that you can look at and say, yes, this is how it happened. This is how Release the Snyder Cut got started. This is what this group of fine individuals did to get the Restore the SnyderVerse banner up in Times Square. These are the people who did it. This is what they had to go through. This is the story of this fandom. This is the story of these movements. This is bigger than me. This is bigger than any one of us. This is the history. This is the truth. Right or wrong, for better or worse, this is the truth. What? I mean, I don't know.
And the truth isn't always pretty. It's sometimes the truth can be hard, and the truth can be brutal. But at the end of the day, you tell the truth, whatever it is, and that's one thing that I'm really looking forward to this book is just seeing just the accurate representation of what happened. And before we wrap this up, I guess do you have any more clips that you want to show?
Yeah, you know what? I'll give you another clip. Let's see here. What do we got? We got so many clips I've put out for this book. Let's Here's a clip you might like.
Let's actually put this banner down first. Oh, I already like this. I already like this clip already.
Corey from the Bat Channel were beside themselves. Trey and Corey from the Bat Channel were beside themselves. Their YouTube channel was being attacked by rabid Robert Pattinson fans over the less than perfect review the Bat Channel bestowed upon Matt Reeves' The Batman. Trey was heartbroken because the Bat Channel has delivered fair and honest viewpoints on all things Batman. They are the Bat Channel for Christ's sakes. Trey even ate a Little Caesars calzone on stream in promotion for Matt Reeves' divisive 2022 opus. Did Trey order extra Catwoman sauce? We may never know. What we do know is Trey checked his watch.
I felt so bad because, you know, that stream, before I was doing YouTube regularly, I was a guest on that very stream you're talking about. And what's kind of sad is Corey and I were much harder on that film than Trey was. Out of the three of us, Trey was probably the easiest on that film. Corey and I were very brutal on that film, and Trey was probably the nice one. And Trey was the one who received the most attack, which I felt really bad about.
Yeah, but see, and there's a lot. See, but do you see what I mean when I say that this book is all encompassing? It's covering everything that happened within that time, including, you know, the Batman getting released and how divisive it was, because it ties in with when I talk in the book about how Matt Reeves robbed Ben Affleck of his solo Batman movie.
Oh, do you have a clip for that?
No, I don't have any clips made for that, but I will give you we can give you let's see. Here's a controversial one.
Oh boy, Walter Hamada.
Sugihara did not care much about Kevin Sugihara did not care much about social media reactions to BVS. To him and his co-chair Toby Emmerich, this was about bonus money. Justice League needed to be released on time for the top execs to get their extra lucrative payday. If fans on social media hated Ben Affleck as Batman and kept touting Henry Cavill as a joyless Superman, that meant Snyder's vision was too divisive of a risk. That risk needed to be mitigated at all costs. If Batman v Superman makes $1 billion, Warner Brothers is committed to Zack Snyder's dark and unique vision. But if BVS underperformed, the studio could use that as a scapegoat to justify removing Zack Snyder and taking the DCEU into a more Marvel-like direction. The movie-going audience loves humor and wants to be choking on popcorn every 30 seconds through belly-aching laughter. Why should Marvel make all the cash? Sugihara knew what needed to happen next.
And here, I'll give you the next clip that comes right after that, just for some context here. Hold on.
Brothers' war room was large and luxurious. The Warner Brothers war room was large and luxurious. There were several office chairs accompanying a supersized work table. Executives nervously sat down and awaited the orders from their determined CEO, Kevin Sugihara. Sugihara told his staff that he has seen the movie multiple times and again last night. He feels the delay made the quality of the movie better. This falls in line with reports of some of these same studio executives giving Batman v Superman a standing ovation. They all loved Ben Affleck as Batman. Unfortunately, many people on social media were not aligned with the personal feelings of those in attendance of this meeting. Kevin Sugihara was about to outline a plan. This plan would not just deceive moviegoers, but it would reshape the DCEU for years to come. Here, the conflicted CEO would mastermind the perception of box office underperformance for BVS, as well as the unceremonious ousting of director Zack Snyder for his upcoming Justice League film, paused, not stopped by ZodWriter, is coming soon.
What idiots. What freaking idiots. Like, your second film could have made $1 billion. You're already doing better than Marvel.
It did make $1 billion, and they hit it. They basically went in and forged the numbers to make it look like BVS underperformed. And then they cut the theatrical run of BVS by 2 weeks so that they could justify the underperformance and using it as a way to course correct and chase after Marvel. This was all Sugihara. It starts at the top. It started with Sugihara and it continued on as a culture throughout the company. Even when they, oh my God, our greatest ally during all of this, the hero of the book, is John Stankey from AT&T. He's the whole reason we got the Snyder Cut. Had it not been for John Stankey, we wouldn't have gotten it, because everybody in that executive place of WB at the time was anti-Snyder. Nobody wanted to release the Snyder Cut. Not Toby Emmerich, not anybody who was in charge at that time. The only thing that Stankey saw was the fans want this. WB owns this. This is going to make them money, and it's going to give AT&T goodwill. Now, keep in mind, this was before the merger. This was when AT&T owned Warner Brothers. And John Stankey was like, you're going to put that movie out. This movie is coming out. I don't care what your personal opinions are. I don't care what your biases are. We need a win. We need content for HBO Max. And the fans want this. Have you been on social media lately? Stankey was pissed because they were all trying to tell Stankey that, oh, we shouldn't release this movie. No, we shouldn't do that. We've already got a Justice League movie out and it flopped. Stankey's like, yeah, it flopped because you put out the wrong version of the movie. Nobody told you to do that. Why did you replace Zack Snyder? I mean, I'm no movie studio head, but from what I can tell, Zack Snyder's vision for the movie would have made some money, and people obviously want it. They've been campaigning for it for years. Put it out. Toby, make the call. Call Zack Snyder. That's what happened. We have John Stankey, CEO of AT&T, to thank for getting the Snyder Cut. And anybody that says anything different, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. He was the guy. It had nothing to do with oh, well, they just needed content. That's the only reason it got released. No, that was only one of the reasons it got released. It got released because Stankey wanted to please the fans. Stankey wanted a win for AT&T. You know, you remember because everybody was thanking AT&T.
Oh, yeah.
And Stankey knew it. And even on social media, AT&T was putting out Batfleck clips and pictures. And Are you kidding me? This was happening because of AT&T, because of John Stankey, right from the top. That's why Toby Emmerich was so bitter, because Toby was the guy that had to actually had to swallow his pride and call Zack and be like, hey, Zack, can we do this thing? Can we make the Snyder Cut a thing? Do we have it? And you know what they wanted to do? You know what Toby tried to do? They were just going to put out the Snyder Cut as it was. They were going to just take like the rough edit of it that they had, and they wanted to just put that out.
Oh, God.
And Stanky was like, no, you call Zack Snyder and you work it out. I'm sure Zack Snyder, the worst thing that could have happened was us losing AT&T. AT&T knew what was up. AT&T was tired of the BS. AT&T wanted the Snyder Cut out. And AT&T also would have likely restored the SnyderVerse had they maintained control. That's another thing that people don't realize.
Because when the Snyder Cut first came out, they were promoting everything like crazy. And then as the Snyder Cut came out, that's when AT&T stopped promoting things so much. And
because of the merger. They were merging with it was being sold, Warner Brothers Discovery. A different company, different regime.
Yeah, and I remember we thought Warner Brothers Discovery was our savior, and we saw how that ended.
No, our savior was AT&T. I'm telling you that right now. The book has heroes and villains. The hero is John Stankey and AT&T. The villains are Kevin Tsujihara, Toby Emmerich, Walter Hamada, James Gunn. The list goes on and on and on. We've also in the heroes category, we can also put, I've actually got it outlined for the book. We've got a hero, we got a heroes category and a villains category. In the heroes category, you got John Stankey at the top. Right underneath John Stankey, you got Pam Abdi, Mike DeLuca. You got the woman that called Justice League a global phenomenon, because she got a lot of heat for that. Priya.
I can't pronounce that.
I can't. Yeah, I but she got a lot of heat for that when she said that. After she said it, they couldn't take it back. But they made her life a living hell after that. So she's in the hero category. You got certain divisions of Warner Brothers that was in the hero category, like TNT, that network.
Yeah.
They're in the hero category because they're 100% in support of Zack Snyder. They wanted the Snyderverse to continue. I'm telling you, Batman, AT&T would have restored the Snyderverse. We wouldn't be having this conversation if AT&T still owned WB. Because if AT&T still owned them, Snyderverse would have been restored. This is no joke. Stanky wasn't playing around. He was pissed.
Damn, I wish they maintained control, because I would love to see Toby gone and Cernoff gone and
they would have. Toby and them might have still been there, but the thing is, they would have had to do whatever Stanky told them if they still wanted to be there. You see, that's the thing. Toby didn't want to call Zack. Toby was dead against it. They all made pitches to Stanky about not doing it, about why they shouldn't do it, about you can't do that because if you capitulate to the fans, they're going to want more. We're never going to hear the end of it. And they were right. They were right about that. We do want more. We want the Snyderverse to be restored. But these were the people that they knew about that. They knew that. They were trying to tell Stanky that at that time. And Stanky's like, no, it doesn't matter. I don't care what you're trying to tell me now. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But right now, call Zack and put that movie out. No matter what. And that's what he told. This is what makes him a hero. he told Toby Emmerich this. You make that deal no matter what.
Oh, wow.
So
He really is.
Toby had to get on the phone, call Zack Snyder, and basically grovel to Zack. Is there something that we can do to make this happen? Can we do this thing? And Zack is like, yeah, Toby, I'll even do it for free. I don't know. But Pause Not Stopped, it's really going to be an eye-opener for a lot of people. I think you guys are going to be really surprised, but I just gave away the hero of the story. The hero of the story was John Stanky.
And hopefully, I know nothing's happened yet, but I'm hoping that Netflix can be another hero.
Well, Netflix is already in the hero category on my sheet because Netflix is the home of Zack Snyder. We've got Army of the Dead. We're getting Rebel Moon. We got a lot of Zack Snyder collaborations to look forward to in the future with Netflix. Hopefully, we get the SnyderVerse on Netflix. So they're already in there as heroes. But I'm telling you, man, AT&T. Yeah, Toby was begging like a dog. He was giving Stanky all these bullet points about why they shouldn't release the Snyder. And you know how I know? Because I talked to somebody for the book who was at that meeting, who knows what happened at that meeting when John Stanky told Toby Emmerich to call Zack Snyder. That actually happened.
Oh, damn. Do you have a clip for that?
I played the Toby clip already. Didn't you?
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I'm probably gonna release a couple more clips from that segment because there's some good stuff in there about Stanky going off. But he told Toby in front of everybody, call Zack Snyder, make the deal no matter what.
And honestly, I'll always be thankful for John Stanky. I really appreciate AT&T because no matter what, there'd be no hope for the Snyderverse without the Snyder Cut because you're not going to make sequels to a movie that hasn't been released yet. So the Snyder Cut is what we needed.
Here's another little nugget for you from my little Ayer cut coverage that's in the book. Here's another little tidbit about that. Had the merger not happened between with WB and Warner Brothers Discovery, and they were still under AT&T, we would have got the Ayer cut. Stanky wanted to do a package deal. He wanted to put out the Snyder Cut. And I don't know if you remember this, but there were some reports about the visual effects company working on the Snyder Cut, but also working on the Ayer Cut at the same time.
Yeah, I remember now.
And that is 100% true. You know why? Because AT&T had plans. They were going to release the Ayer Cut as well. They were going to. The Ayer Cut was going to be a thing because they were like, they're like, fans are asking for that too. We might as well put that out as well. But because of the merger and because of all the stuff that happened, never got a chance to make it work. It ended up being a casualty of the merger. The Ayer Cut was a casualty of the merger. Had the merger not happened or happened significantly later, we would have got the Ayer Cut. And that's mentioned in the book as well. So.
Oh boy, and I'm just gonna say this, and I'm gonna actually do my own video about this at some point, hopefully this week, but David Ayer, the best thing you can do at this point is one, apologize to OSHA Fresh, okay? Do not go after your fans who are helping you. And two, stop working with Gunn and get on the Sell campaign. Because guess what? The Sell campaign includes your cut of Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad is Snyderverse.
No, David Ayer, unfortunately, is I don't want to say he's in love with James Gunn, but I don't think there's really any other way to put it, because he's acting like a girl who has a high school crush on the star of the football team, man. It's ridiculous. He's fawning all over James Gunn, letting James Gunn basically walk all over him. And for what? We would have had the Ayer cut. Okay. When we went to, we were all, the group were all, I don't know if you were involved in this at all. I don't remember if you were there or not, Bad Dan, but we were all in a group chat for a Release the Ayer cut trending event. And the plans for that trending event was to do a Release the Ayer cut trending event the day the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's version was released. Because we knew that if we did it then, that would have the maximum impact and show WB that we wanted the Ayer cut. And it would basically outshine James Gunn's Suicide Squad release. And the people who were running that campaign were in touch with David Ayer at the time. And David Ayer basically said, don't do the trending event the day the Suicide Squad comes out, because we want to give James Gunn, his cast and crew, we want to give them their moment in the sun. So let's not ruin it by doing a trending event for my movie. Right there, David Ayer lost so much respect from a lot of people in the Snyder Cut movement, because at that point, I would say he had about 75% of the people that were still active, that were tweeting and pushing the hashtags. We don't have numbers like that today. The numbers that David Ayer could have got would have rivaled, or at least came pretty close to what we got for the Snyder Cut, had Ayer let us do it. But Ayer didn't want it. He didn't want it, and he wouldn't support it if we were doing it on the same day that the Suicide Squad came out. And because of that, that really crippled the whole Release the Ayer cut movement, because Ayer, he ruined the one big shot that he had to send the message. That was like, remember that night we were all told, hey, now's the night you got to do the Release the Snyder cut. Now's the night you got to do it. And we had Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, all of them were tweeting. You know why? Because that was the day that the studio was watching. That was the day that they knew, hey, if you want to get the attention, this is what's going to determine whether or not they're going to release the Snyder Cut. And AT&T was watching. Stanky was watching. That was the day, man. The day we wanted Ayer, we wanted to do that trending event, Warner Brothers was watching. You know why? Because Warner Brothers expected an Ayer cut trending event on the day the Suicide Squad was released. And when it didn't happen, you know what that told WB? That told WB, oh, they don't care about the Ayer cut. We should just stick with what James Gunn is doing here. They don't care about that.
And the Suicide Squad failed miserably at the box office.
Yeah, but here we are, years later, sitting here with David Ayer putting out tweets. in Spanish. It's out of my hands. Well, bro.
Yeah, like, look, I could kind of forgive. I mean, look, because I'll be honest, I was kind of on board David Ayer's plan because I was kind of naive and I thought maybe something was happening behind the scenes at that point. I regret that now. I will say that. But the thing is, David Ayer, in my mind, gets one pass on that. One. And he blew his pass. Now it's time for him to actually fight first cut. He's not doing that. And
it's too late. He won't get his cut unless he won't let us get his cut. The only hope that here's the thing. There's two options for David Ayer's Suicide Squad. One, and these are both very valid options. One is he works on it with James Gunn and they figure out a way to retool it to be part of Gunn's DCU. Or WBD gets sold, bought by Comcast Universal, and it'll get released then. And I know what you guys are saying about Ayer cut being part of Cell, but I'm telling you now, with the way things are going, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it is. I think Cell, if it happens, is going to be more geared towards the final movies that Zack has in store, meaning Justice League 2 and 3. I think that's what you'll get through Cell. I don't think that you'll get the Ayer cut. And the reason I'm saying that is because the Ayer cut, Gunn has control over the Ayer cut right now. And I don't know if that's because Gunn himself made a movie called The Suicide Squad. So he kind of controls that franchise. So maybe that's why it's not like Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca's decision to put the Ayer cut out. It has more to do with now Gunn kind of controls that franchise and has plans for that franchise in DCU. So he can actually decide what content to put out with regards to that and what content not to put out, which is why we'll likely never see the Ayer cut until the studio gets sold. And that's if the studio that buys it wants to put it out.
I mean, at least the Ayer cut, technically, I mean, I hate to wait for it, but at least that one is filmed, so you don't worry about actors' ages or anything. But still, it's ridiculous.
Gunn knows that if he releases the Ayer cut, that's going to outshadow, because his movie didn't do that well. So there's going to be jealousy on that level because the Suicide Squad flopped horribly. David Ayer's film, even the studio version of Suicide Squad, is better received than the one that James Gunn put out. So if David Ayer is allowed to put out his far superior version to even the theatrical version of Suicide Squad and James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, that's problematic for Gunn. People don't realize Gunn has every reason in the world not to want this movie to ever come out. At least not while he's there. He's got more incentive not to put it out than to put it out. And like I told you, if he does put it out, it's going to be because it gets retooled with David Ayer and somehow is shoehorned into the DCU. And if that happens, then it's just another compromised version of the Ayer cut. It's not the Ayer cut.
Not to cut out all of Jared Leto's scenes, because no way James Gunn commits to Jared Leto as his Joker, which is one of the biggest reasons I want the Ayer cut, is to see Jared Leto's Joker. Will Smith. Would Will Smith be Deadshot, or would you have to recast Deadshot? There's so many reasons why that would not work, and if David Ayer agreed to that, I would lose any... I mean, he's already on thin ice with me after going after one of the fans, but... no, that would be... I would lose respect for that. And hopefully, hopefully one way or another, Cell paves way for the Ayer cut, whether it is being sold to or Cell happening and it doing well on Netflix gives Comcast a reason to release more incentive to release the air cut, showing that Snyderverse demand. Because unlike Zack Snyder Justice League 2 and 3, we really have all the time in the world for the air cuts because of actors' ages and stuff. So yeah, exactly.
Well, that's another thing. That's another thing. I'm going to tell you. That's another thing. Jared Leto is another big reason why Gunn doesn't want to release the air cut, because not only is Jared Leto and David Ayer, I mean, Jared Leto and James Gunn are not on good terms, but Jared Leto and Margot Robbie aren't on good terms. And Margot Robbie is just coming off of $1 billion film. And here's something you guys might not have known. Margot Robbie was kind of an obstacle for the air cut back when AT&T was in control. Margot Robbie was one of the reasons why air cut didn't come out after the Snyder cut. She has issues with the way Harley Quinn is portrayed in the air cut, and she made her own movie and did all this stuff. And so guess what? Margot Robbie is a big name right now, man. Yeah, but it's still a $1 billion movie. That was a mistake. That's a mistake that Toby Emmerich made, not Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie straight up told them it was gonna be a $1 billion movie. Barbie. It is what it is. And I think this is one of the reasons why Ayer is bitter, because he knows that he had opportunities, that he could have got this released. But I think now that time has passed, until it gets sold, or like you said, maybe it will be part of Cell. I don't know. I'm not hearing that, but maybe it will be. Who knows?
And at the end of the day, all we can do is hope. All we can do is hope. And one thing that your book has inspired is just sending that message of positivity, sending that message of the truth out there.
Yeah.
And
the truth is that the studio is the villain, and I wish we were still under the control of AT&T. That's the truth. That's the reality. If we were still under the control of AT&T, we'd have the Snyderverse.
And I'm looking forward to reading all about that in your book. And I really appreciate you coming on here, Zod. I really enjoyed getting to know a lot more about you, a lot more about your book, stuff that I didn't even know, some stuff that I knew that I wanted to kind of get out there for my audience, but some stuff that I myself have learned as well. So I really appreciate you coming on, Zod. I had a really great time discussing all this with you. And I guess anything you want to say to kind of wrap this up, or any upcoming shows you want to talk about?
No, not particularly. Of course, I want everybody to tune in to, I Don't Get It on Saturday the 26th, when me and APAS do our next episode. That's going to be a good one. It'll be nice and entertaining for everybody. It'll be must-see YouTube. As far as anything I want to say with regards to the book, I just want to say thank you, Bat Dan, for having me on. It's been nice to kind of have a discussion with regards to the book and where it is right now and where where it's headed. And I'm looking forward to coming back on here again to talk to you about it again as we get closer. And of course, when the book actually comes out, that's going to be a fun, those are going to be some fun streams.
Well, yeah, and I can't wait for those streams. Again, I already titled this part 1 because I know we're going to do a part 2. It's, again, people watching, it's not going to be next week. It's going to be closer to when the book actually comes out. But I was really glad to have you on here to really cover this book, get to know this book, because I think it's going to be a really important book for everyone to read. And guys, if you like this interview, please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode. I have a lot of great shows coming up myself. I actually have a lot. I have a spoiler review on The Last Voyage with the Bat Channel this week.
Nice.
I can't wait to talk about that one with him. I got marvelous discussions with Socks this week on Saturday as well to get ready for Loki season 2. We'll be reviewing The Avengers, where Loki was the bad guy of that movie. And on Sunday, Josh Herrera and I will be doing a spoiler review on Blue Beetle, because I will see that movie, I will give it a chance, and if it's trash, I will say it's trash. But again, if you like this video, again, like, share, subscribe. And if you want more interesting videos, see more interesting interviews such as this one, hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode. And lastly, have a bat-tastic day.